Through the fires of a culture that praises the unrighteous and celebrates mediocrity. It's time for a new age, when power to tell stories of the future will be in the hands of the people. Rise up! Become the culture! Hail the Iron Age! Ladies and gentlemen, woo! Welcome to episode 8 of Iron Age Legends. Today I am joined by a very special guest, the one, the only, Conan, the librarian. Oh man, how's it? It's I know the time difference is pretty rough. Unfortunately, this was a work day for me. This is about the earliest I can manage most of the time.
Yeah,
ironically, I got done a little bit earlier, and I'm like, oh, never mind. I could have started earlier, but too late for that. And also, thank you to all of the guests who are here and who will pop in as the show goes on. I know there's some like two old dudes are getting in a fight on the internet for some reason, and people really want to watch. So
yeah, it's not even a fight.
I was talking to my dad right before I hopped on. I was like, why would they put Joe in a debate? That's like cutting off a guy's legs and having him run an ultra marathon. It's not a pretty picture, man.
Jack, can I get
what you want to do push-ups? What are you, a dog-faced pony soldier? Dude, that's perfect. I think now you have to shit your pants. So I think that's the final piece.
No, I'll pass. Thanks, though.
Oh, okay.
Don't need to get that deep into character.
Oh my goodness, yo, Andrew, thanks for coming by, man. Hello, welcome from your faraway country. But normally, as I begin one of these streams, a lot of people I've brought on have been authors so far. That's going to be changing as time goes on. But a lot of people I've brought on are authors. And what I would do is I would then take a minute to read a portion of your story. But I've read your story a couple of times on my reading streams. And he has a brand new audiobook, very well narrated by Son of Sonnet. And it's I almost finished the audiobook today as I was working, just in a little extra prep time for this. Dude, he did such a killer job. Like,
yeah, he did.
It's some of the characters, like the voices I would have picked if I were doing it, exactly the voices that he picked. I always love.
We had a good long chat about that. Him and I jumped on a voice call together and sort of hashed out what we could. I made sure he had an understanding of, cadences, tones. I think he did a stellar job reproducing practically all of the voices.
Yeah. Was it a very involved thing? You're like, you went through each character and like, this is kind of what I envisioned for this character and that character.
Yep.
Also, real quick, AC brings up a really good point. Katanas are gay. That's what he's claiming. That's what he's. I think he's just ripping on you, man.
If he starts quoting that, what the heck was that show called? I think it was like
Deadliest Warrior.
Deadliest Warrior, yeah.
Yeah.
If he starts
dude.
quoting that show, him and I are gonna have a problem at the barbecue.
Oh, that show is I like. Don't get me wrong. I actually liked watching it. Like, call me whatever you want. I did enjoy watching it, but especially when they brought up the Hawaiian episode, I'm like, that's interesting. Sure, why not? And then like I went back to visit my grandpa the last time I was there, and he's telling me about all these cool weapons and fighting techniques they had. I'm like, wow, it'd be a shame. It should be a shame if they didn't talk to someone who knew what they were talking about when they did the show.
Yep.
But yeah, man. Yeah. No, you had
research into the weaponry. So some points I can concede the katana is probably inferior in certain regards, but
it's hard to defend with because it only has the single edge. I think that's, and then no cross guard as well.
Yes and no. So the actual purpose of the very small rounded guard is simply to protect the hand. It's not meant to really block weapon or anything, because you're not supposed to do that. The whole purpose is to get in close enough to slash your opponent in the most vital area that you can reach in the span of a second.
Yeah.
It's not about wailing back and forth. And
don't you hate in a show or an anime like when they're just hitting their swords? I'm like, you're not meant to hit the sword. It's meant to hit the flesh. That's the only area where a sword is good. If the person has really good armor, that negates a lot of the effectiveness of most swords, frankly.
That's very true about all swords in history. You know, the better the armor, the less likely your blade's going to do anything. That's why. Deal with.
Oh, there you're back. Good. Cut you off. It's all like right. He's talking shit about history shows. Cut him off. It's fantastic.
The internet. It's like, hey, shut up. Get to the point.
And it's like, but like on the other hand, especially in regards to storytelling too, you gotta. There has to be rule of cool a little bit. Like you don't want a really realistic sword fight or battle scene in your book most of the time. I don't think. Because reality of it, like if you go to ancient history, it's like a lot of battles where like they'd be throwing rocks and spears and arrows at each other, and then they'd be yelling, trying to intimidate one another. And when one army got the upper hand, the other army would usually run away and get slaughtered right away. Not a very exciting story.
Yeah, I think the most realistic of any of the fights in G Sedai 1 was between Gabriel and Uriel.
I was gonna say yeah. No, I just listened to that.
The character is he's just a brute powerhouse with a very large axe. So it's the most natural type of fight. His whole intent was just to smash that thing into his opponent. Nothing else. There was very little flash and craziness. And at one point in this fight scene, they actually ended up having to revert to hand because katana's of no real use against
if you get too close, the sword is no longer effective. Truth be told.
Yep. And it wasn't. Gabriel got disarmed and had to resort to his martial training,
hands, his legs, everything, man.
Yep.
And like, truth be told, like when I read your book the first time, G Sedai 1, one of the members of the Holy Eight who the main character gets in a fight with. Spoilers, by the way. There's a fight in G Sedai 1, by the way. For those,
there's quite a few.
I know, they're great. But like I was reading, I'm like, this guy, he wears flame covered clothing. He has a battle axe. He headbutts Gabriel in the middle of a fight. Mm-hmm. I think this is me. I'm like, I like in my mind, I'd love to be the smooth guy, like who just slightly dodges, just enough of a dodge of every hit to not get hit, and then goes in for the single swipe kill. That's not who I am. I've never been smooth. I've been brutal. That's the only like, and truth be told, like, against someone who's untrained, brutality is usually a pretty effective tool for against someone who's untrained. Yeah.
Yeah. Even for someone who is trained, if you can tap brutality with skill, you're better than someone who's just practiced on a mat the whole time. That's the difference between street fighters and boxers.
It's better than the shit that two old cats are talking about. My fellow American did it better. Thank you, Maji. I love Axe's lots of symbolism. Oh, AC's always on that symbolism, man. It's great, but it's also a bit of a meme at this point. He's like, it's like the guy with the aliens, like symbolism.
Yep. I can make that meme happen.
Oh yeah, dude. I actually, I'm gonna have him on my show here at some point soon too. I mean, we've been friends long enough. I've read everything he's done. So I was like, yeah. He's like, can I be on your show? I'm like, oh, I never thought about that. Yeah, why not?
No.
Absolutely not. I know you too well. I know everything. What am I going to talk to you about? No. But yeah, man. No, you released your audiobook recently. Also, any links you have, just private them over and I can post them here in a minute. Or you can send it like on Twix also is fine. But yeah, you also released your I got the Color Pop edition of your first comic. Have a couple of notes, but overall I'm really impressed. The color that does exist, the way they portray everything, the very manga, like it's like 75%, 80% manga, like 15-20% American comic, as far as like the style of it for me.
Yeah, there was there's one of those engagement posts on Twitter where someone said, explain your comic book project poorly. And my response was, white guy tries to make a manga.
I mean, not wrong, man. And I wouldn't say you tried. I say you succeeded. Obviously, it's more in the format of like a regular floppy comic book. But yeah, the interiors are like
read from left to right, and but otherwise the art style was classic anime, like the cool stuff that used to trickle across the oceans in like the 80s and 90s and the early 2000s.
And you'd have like all those bad like fan made subtitles or like all the incorrect translations. Some of that stuff was so like for some of the Fate, for the Fate game, if you know the Fate series, there were so many quotes over there that could not translate properly, so you get quotes like people die when they are killed, or just because you're wrong doesn't mean you're incorrect. What?
Oh, I love that. I watch a lot of Asian inspired TV these days. It's unfortunately better than the Western Drek.
Oh, so, 100%. Yeah,
and
no doubt.
I'm a huge fan of the subtitling because the subtitling is ridiculous sometimes. One of my favorite little details about anything from like Japanese dramas to Chinese wuxia to even Korean dramas.
Korea has some really cool stuff, actually, I've been discovering recently.
The cool. Subtitling is phenomenal. And my favorite thing is two people will be having a conversation and they'll wrap up the conversation. One of them will look at the other one and speak, and the subtitling always says, "I will leave first," and then they walk away. It's a politeness that occurs in Eastern culture, but that's not actually what that series of sounds means to them. It's just what the closest English adaptation could be, is them just announcing that they're going to leave.
Well, a lot of the words in a lot of these languages, especially I know Japanese a bit better, but a lot of the words are so specific. There is no direct translation. So it's like, I do feel bad for people who have to translate stuff. It's because it's like, you have to get the idea across somehow. And then if it's a live action or like trying to match lip flaps also, I'm like, what a nightmare. And then you have like all the people are like, Oh, well, they won't understand what a rice or freaking onigiri is. Let's have the Pokemon characters eating jelly donuts.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
the funny looking
perfect localization.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they have gotten a bit better now. People are trying to turn it woke, but like, truth be told, localization for that stuff has never been good. Like in the in the 90s and early 2000s, like Sailor Moon. Did you ever hear about the weird thing they did there?
Yeah.
It's like, don't worry, it's not a homosexual relationship. They're just cousins. They're just cousins. It's fine. What? You could have made it anything. That's what you. What a bunch of nonsense, man. I do love it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I liked so many of the old stuff, and I have to honestly give it to like the original Funimation squad. Their attempts to localize way back then. I think they had the language, but they didn't have the understanding of the culture in order to fully interpret it. And that's where some of that stuff happened, because you have to imagine once it started to pick up interest in the Western market,
they just got things going as fast as they could.
Yeah, just make voiceovers for all of these shows. Go quickly now. We need to get this stuff out to sell it.
We have this thing called Ghost Stories. You guys want to try it? That might be my favorite comedy of all time. It's not, but it's one of them. It makes me cackle laughing, dude.
My all-time favorite anime that was comedy was a show called Excel Saga. I was talking about it on John's Long Box earlier.
Oh yeah. No, I've heard of it. It's not one I've ever seen. I only started watching anime as an adult for some reason.
The creator was a mangaka called Koshi Rikto, and when he got the opportunity to do this thing in an animated format, his whole concept behind it was, I'm going to lambast every genre of manga in a flowing, continuous narrative. So you have main characters and support characters that show up in every single episode. They all have a purpose of their own, but each episode is done in a different genre, like high school romance, sci-fi.
Kind of like Cowboy Bebop a little bit, but even more.
No, it's like literally different.
Oh, so, like completely different. Okay, I'm tracking.
So it's just based a 30-minute episode where the characters act through things that are exactly like the different genre tropes that you would see in manga. And they would follow the storyline of the show, but they would act within certain paradigms the whole time. And it was insane. But the most fun you could have in a half an hour was watching this show, because it made
that's fun.
Half sense. You have this evil,
so close.
Yeah, you have this evil pretty guy sitting on the throne, and he's got two henchmen that are girls. One's kind of squirrely, and she's the main character. She's Excel.
Only the Japanese would have the kahunas to make a pretty boy the villain.
Oh, it's a thing that happens in a lot of Eastern stuff. And then her sidekick is this pretty pale girl that is like constantly dying. She dies at least once in every episode, and Excel always freaks out about it. And then suddenly she's miraculously alive again. And then the two of them found a stray. The two of them found a stray dog that they keep in case they run out of money so that they can eat it.
Oh no.
They call it their emergency.
Like that joke would not fly over here, like from a Western production. There's no way, dude.
It's so demented that the ending credits song is in Japanese, and it's the dog singing into a microphone, begging them not to eat him.
Bro.
And he's just going, arr, 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 arr. And then you have this girl with this Japanese woman in the background translating the dog into Japanese, and then the subtitles flashing across the top of the screen, and I'm like,
what What were you on? Can I have some? Just asking for a friend.
Koshi, what is happening right now?
Also, real quick, yo, Timo, thanks for joining the
Timo.
show, brother. Another kung fu ninja enthusiast for stories. I haven't read his second one yet, but I did read the first one, and I really quite enjoyed it.
Yeah, I helped him out with the second one, I believe. Yeah, I don't think I touched the first one. I don't remember.
Story, show me. Where did he touch you?
Yeah,
show me on the doll.
way too many projects. Yeah.
Oh, it's good and bad because like you have your own projects too, and you want to work on that, and so I'm not going to ask who all you've worked with, but maybe like how many people have you been working with recently? Maybe that's a good question.
Oh, well, I have 7 active clients, which is someone. Yes, book 2.
Tremendous. Also, real quick by AC Pritchard, make manga American again. It's perfect, dude.
Technically right, but also wrong.
Also very, very, very wrong.
Yeah.
Way of the House Husband would never work in America. I love that. I love that book too. It's funny.
It's good. Geez. Okay, so I have 7 active clients right now, which are people that I coach on a weekly basis.
Literary coaching most of the time or all the time? Like, do you coach anyone who isn't working on a book?
Well, it's not always books. I work with some folks who are writing, television and film scripts and comic book scripts. So not always novels. It's just whatever the creator needs help on. We sit down for an hour and I kind of coax them past their obstacles and help them get back into the writing side. And
give them tools, tips, and show them the way.
And there's some who have who go through what Chan calls the boot camp, which is
I think it's a good word for it. Yeah.
We spend an hour going line by line on what you've written, and I teach while we clean it up and adjust things, and
I think that's one of the better ways to learn, especially with writing stuff, because like if you can watch all the videos in the world on YouTube, there's a lot of information out there, and some of it's good, but if you read it, you're not internalizing. It's not something you're actually adding to your skill set unless you're also writing it out while you're watching.
Unfortunately, it's gotten a lot worse in the last few years.
In what way?
That's one of the things that I kind of hate is that they're with the boom of self-publishing becoming so simple.
It's so easy compared to how it used to be, dude. It's nowhere close.
A lot of people started doing it and they really kind of diluted the pool. But on the flip side, there's thousands, if not maybe 1 million or more at this point, of people who give you a 15-minute web page read that doesn't actually tell you what you want to know, but they peddle it as if they're going to help you learn how to write.
Yep. And I don't mind people who just have like a YouTube video talking about writing or their opinions on authorship and all that jazz. But when there's so many paid things out there that I've seen, I'm like, you can have like to become a successful writer and author, it takes a lot more. Like you can have all the skills in the world. It takes a lot more than that to become a true success anyway. As I'm sure everybody in the indie space has kind of experienced to some small degree or another.
Yeah, and most of them aren't. They're just parroting something that they also read and setting themselves up as an authority. I don't pretend to be an authority, and I certainly don't have a page somewhere that tells you absolutely nothing but gets you to click on it because you want to learn how to write. I sit down with you for an hour and we have a one-on-one conversation about it. And then
they're selling to people who want that easy, like pay to win success. But you and I both know that pay to win to success doesn't really exist. Not truly. Not like maybe it has in some industries at some points, but not anymore. Not in the modern day. It takes a combination of skill, hard work, and a kind of, frankly, a little bit of luck, especially in an
Yes.
industry like this.
Yes, lightning in a bottle. I don't think it's ever actually worked the pay to win format, at least as far as publishing is concerned. It's all
Yeah,
lightning in a
yeah.
bottle. It's whether or not your thing, and that's the thing that a lot of people don't realize. Like I J.K. Rowling a lot because she's like the most recent modern example of what I mean by that. In that
Yeah,
the Harry
yeah.
Potter stuff was written and had been out for many, many years before it blew up.
It's almost like publishers kind of just decide what's going to be pop. Not always. Like it does have to be good usually if it's going to be a real success.
True.
But like recent example for me was we read The Fourth Wing recently, and we've been ripping on it ever since. It's in its own genre, it's actually not that bad. But for your average person, like just for someone who likes stories that make sense and characters that make sense and that's well written, it's not boring, I'll give it that, but it's not good. It's very, very, very hard to read.
Yeah.
But like I don't know of another book recently that's been as forcibly pushed as The Fourth Wing, especially like in the mainstream book scene. How many thousands of videos are out there talking about it, and all of these like 4 and 5 star reviews from people who have never read, like, I know this is personal taste, but like who have never read a good fantasy book.
Mhm. Well, a lot of that, like you were talking about, is the pay to win model. There is some truth to you can get with a publicist and they have a network of people that will write reviews and will pump your numbers up as long as you pay them to do so. That's
What
the natural order of the entertainment industry.
do you think Aragon, the Aragon Inheritance series, is an example of that? It's a kind of not like, I'm not saying there isn't quality in it and that it didn't capture people's imaginations in some way, but he was the son of two people who were like pretty high up in the publishing industry, and he published like the first book when he was 16. It's like no 16-year-old just out of a normal family would be able to be in that position, I don't think. Doesn't mean it's not earned in some way, and doesn't mean he didn't try his best and do what he did, but he did, especially back then when it was all pretty much all controlled by the big five. It kind of was one of the only ways to do that.
Yeah, it was networking oriented because his parents were networked. Now, if I remember correctly, he had won a minor award before they launched into the series publishing, but again, he was in that minor award because of networking. It was a submission
Who you
that
know, and you have to
yeah,
be in the contest and have people
yeah,
like
and that's how
you
it
almost need
always
an
works.
endorsement from someone.
Right. That's how it always works. Somebody said something to someone. Now, I have a personal example of that in G Said I Won Comics campaign because of
Yes.
some crazy drama that happened, and Royce and a couple of other people in our community mentioning my comic book. I got a major donation from Eric July.
That
And
that was such a cool thing.
it was
Because
wild.
like, truth be told, like I have nothing. I like Rippa. I used to watch his YouTube content all the time, but I never saw the Rippaverse do a move quite like that. I thought that was pretty special. That was a really
It was.
tremendous thing.
Yep. And that's the same thing as any of the lightning in a bottle things that happen in media. It's because somebody had the ear of someone at the right moment to say, hey, you should check this thing out. And then that person who had the capacity to make moves made those moves. And so the creator won. It's always going to be who you know. Now we all know that Hollywood went through a period of time where was used in a really horrible capacity.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Who
the
you know
indie,
and what you're willing to do, kind of thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
but with the indie community now as it is, we've seen the rise of a lot of great content creators out there because they networked with each other and were able to
100%.
increase their audiences together.
Yeah, and you and I are, I think, like we've talked privately, like we have a similar mind in this capacity. We're much more collaborative than
Yes.
me. Like I've met, I'm not going to say any names, but there are a few people in the community and like Iron Age adjacent at least who I've talked to and interacted with, and some of them are very much a scarcity mentality. It's like, oh, if Daniel's book sells this many copies, that's like X amount of copies that I'm not selling. Kind of
Mhm.
that's their mentality about it anyway. I'm like,
Yeah.
what do you mean? I just bought like a pile of 12 books from Iron Age people recently. What do you like? Well, like the market is there. It's about building up your following. It's about doing this. And honestly, if you work with cool people, you expand your network, and you also like are probably going to improve your skills. Like I've learned things
Mhm.
from my Iron Seas compadres, AC Pritchard specifically, Justin or Evely Music, and Joe Batts. Like I've learned a lot from those guys. I'm a dum dum when it comes to all this programming, thumbnail, computer stuff. And no, like having that association has helped me tremendously, and I really enjoy that.
It's true. The scarcity mentality itself, I think, is hard for some people to grasp, and I don't know a really good way to explain it other than you're treating yourself like you're less capable than you actually are when you have that mindset, because you're predicating your value as a creator of whatever it is that you create on how many sales you make.
Yeah, you have all these internal qualifiers, but
Mhm.
I'd argue it goes even deeper than that. Now there are exceptions to the rule, but I think a rule that I would say exists there is that if you have the scarcity mindset, you are not a very you don't really kind of you're more selfish. You don't see the benefit of having other creators or other people in your sphere around you unless there is a direct benefit that you can quantify and
Yeah,
qualify
I
and
can see
like
that.
put math to it. And that's something I've argued about before too. It's like I quickly figured out one guy, he didn't want a fellow collaborator or someone to work with and talk to and really like learn from or give information to. He wanted a customer. And
Mhm.
that's the only reason he ever did anything that he did. Like even the good things that he did, like, oh, I'm gonna give away this book, like for this, or I'm running this promotional thing. I'm like, oh, it seems cool, and then I participated and was talking to him, and it's like, oh, he is, yeah, this is a one man ship. This is a one man situation, and no one else is allowed aboard kind of situation.
Yeah, and you can't succeed that way. You, there's a favorite lyric of mine from a musician that I absolutely adore named Nathaniel Radeleaf, which is, uh, I, should I cuss on this show? Do you care?
I try to keep it to a minimum, but I cuss a little bit, so go ahead.
Okay. So the lyric is, when you're rolling in it long enough, your shit won't even smell.
Okay, is that a country lyric or?
It's Louisiana
It's
bluegrass jazz.
okay, so
Uh,
country adjacent kind of.
yeah, country adjacent. But the idea behind it is that you're, as a creator, you know all the facts of your story. But if you don't communicate them well to the rest of the world, all those facts don't matter. So you need other people to read what you wrote and confirm that you actually conveyed that information appropriately so that they could understand it. You can write the most
100%.
amazing story, but if other people can understand it, it's not going to matter.
Well, yeah, no, I learned this despite my kind of relaxed, non-professional, savage kind of nature that I put off. I did have training in kind of big business and interpersonal stuff when I was younger for quite a few years. And something he always taught me was, oh, just wow. Sorry, my brain just gave up, dude. I might be tired too. Forgive me, boys. I was on a roof today.
Cahoon
Oh yeah,
had a Joe Biden moment.
what? Who? I know who and where I am mostly. I didn't forget how many I've been in the Senate for 176 years.
Yeah,
Dude, he like very no one like I love doing Trump's voice, but Biden has all those terrible, wonderful quotes. I love it, man. Also, I've been asking people this.
it's a
Do you
gaff
know
machine.
what this is?
I can barely see it.
Oh, let me turn on the whites. There we go. See if I can bring it a little bit closer. I think it's from a show or a manga, but I'm not familiar with it. I just got a good price and I really liked the artwork. I got it from a local shop. It was hand done.
It honestly reminds me of a series of films called Wolf and Cub.
Huh. Are they live action?
Yes.
Huh. Yeah, no, I that is one thing. I need to get into the Kurosawa films, I've been told, because I love Japanese things. I've always been interested in that.
They're doing a they've completed a remaster of Seven Samurai, so I am super excited for when that releases, and I'm going to encourage everyone to go see it because, dude, if
they're
you want
wait, they're releasing it in theaters?
Storytelling, I think so. They are, yes.
Oh, yo, I'm down for that, man. I've never seen it too. That would be cool.
If you want to understand visual storytelling, Kurosawa is the only way to go. Everything, every camera angle, every position, every facial expression is conveyed to the people involved in the production of it through his vision, and that's what makes them so amazing. He was my big inspiration for Jisadai. The whole idea.
No, the positioning, like honestly, even without the comic, I could picture like you again, you write it cinematically. I'm like, you son of a bitch, you were writing a story about a Sasuke and what was it, Edge Runners, that, and you thought we wouldn't notice, but no, like the way you talk about the position, like the whole, like even when they're sitting on the train and like she has her little like Heaven, her little guinea pig, and I love that you call it Piggy throughout the entire story.
Yes.
But he's like, and he looked down
piggy.
while keeping his head. He looked down while his head never left the headrest, and his eyes, and he looked down at the guinea pig. I'm like, I can picture exactly what's going on here. Again, the conveyance, like a storytelling, it's not just the plot and the characters. It's having the tools to be able to communicate that to somebody else. Because we all can picture our own story in our head very easily.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was talking about. And I found that simplicity is often the best engine. That's why I wrote Gabriel the way I did. He's a very simple character, but he feels complex.
Oh, yeah.
This stuff will make you a damn sexual tyrannosaurus, just like me.
Anyway, that's how I picture Uriel. I'm just thought I'd let you know. Oh man, give him. Wait, is he wearing a leather jacket in his scene, or is it dead?
No,
I'm trying to remember. It was something different.
Yeah, no, it wasn't a leather jacket if I remember.
It feels like it should be though.
Yeah. What I was doing with making a nod to a cultural style in Japan of the gangster greaser, which was jeans, cowboy boots, big belt buckle.
A lot of Americans, like if you're a bad boy in Japan, you just dress and act a lot more American, and that's kind of
pretty much, yeah.
It's like a combination of that, like half American, half like old style Yakuza. That's kind of the vibe there.
Yep. And there were a few parallels between him and a character in the second book because they both came from that sort of background. And
I know who you're talking about too.
Yeah, the style was supposed to be the link between the two of them. But if I remember correctly, it was an overshirt. Like the Japanese and some Chinese shops have their own versions of what we Americans would call the Hawaiian shirt. It's very similar to the button down with the really bright, vibrant patterns, but
Almost
it's
meant to be
styled.
worn like non-buttoned, like unbuttoned
Yeah,
at least.
like a jacket, yes. And that's what I was going for with him, was the greaser gangster who wore one of those Japanese version of the Hawaiian shirts, and it was flame oriented. He was very big, very brash, very loud, always aggressive and kind of impatient. And
That's the vibe, man.
yeah, he was the contrast to Michael, who was poised, proper, and chill.
Oh, like I don't I know we don't want to get into spoilers, but the
I don't
Michael.
mind spoilers. I'm not afraid of them.
Okay, guys, some minor spoilers incoming for G Sedai 1, just because it's inevitable. Wait, hold on. Batsaw says Yakuza dress flamboyant. Yeah, he did live there for a while. That if he's saying that, I believe that.
Mhm. Yeah, from what I can gather,
that's so funny.
From what I could gather of my research, there were the lower level guys definitely were more flamboyant. They were out on the streets, so they had to represent a specific image, which was
because
street.
you're actually going to see them, and plus they're trying to make a name for themselves too. They like the status. That's
involved. Yeah. And but once you get up there in their ranks, from what I've read, it becomes more like corporation of crime. So the actual movers and shakers were the same type of people you would see sitting having a business lunch in a restaurant. So they were just guys in suits.
They might be missing a couple extra fingers, but they're in suits. American Muscle, Yakuza. Yeah, pretty much. That's about right, man. Oh, I need a soundbite of like weeb at some point as well. I need to add that.
Yeah. All right. So spoiler, what was it you wanted to say?
Oh, yeah, no, just even with his Gabriel's natural advantages, obviously the advanced nanotech, you imply that the others have cybernetic upgrades of different kinds. You don't really go into what they are. It's kind of left open a little bit, and Gabriel wouldn't really know. So obviously there's all that. Michael, it seems like maybe they just strengthened his bones and somehow increased his muscle fibers or something. That's my guess. But he pretty much dominates that fight for most of it.
He does. There's a huge story behind that's gonna come to light eventually. But right now, what I can say about it is there is a point in the battle sequence between Gabriel and Michael where I tell you flat out what his cybernetics are, but it happens so softly in the narrative.
It's just like a throwaway line kind of thing.
Yeah, it's easy to miss. And that was when Gabriel moved fast enough and came down with his sword on Michael's arm.
That's right. Yeah. And it just
the arm buckled, but it didn't break because his limbs were all replaced by machines. His arms and legs are cybernetic. And there's a whole story behind that will come out eventually. But right now I'm holding that.
Is Michael a fan? Is Michael a fan favorite a little bit?
Yes, he is.
Did you anticipate that?
I kind of hoped a little bit, because despite the fact that, spoiler, something really horrible happens to Michael at the end of the book, for the first one anyways, he continues to be a theme through the rest of them in some way.
In some ways, he seems like the best of the angels, so to say, the Holy Eight.
Yes. Way. And really, it's because if I have a thing that I put on a website called Ream, which is a place where you can follow and support me and get little tidbits of information that everybody else wouldn't get. And I have an entire dossier set about the archangels, and it goes into the lore of how they came to be. Michael is the reason that the Holy Eight exist.
Yeah, I don't know if it's outright said, but it is implied that he's the oldest. It might have even said it at some point in the book, like he's the oldest.
The implication that he's physically the oldest, yes. The two oldest of the archangels of the Holy Eight are Raphael and Michael. Raphael, however, he's always been on a different trajectory, and he's actually the one that created the cybernetics that the other members of the Holy Eight were given. He also is the one who created Gabriel's nanotech. And
there's some stuff going on with him in book 2.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten there all the way yet. I'm near.
You still
I'm
haven't finished it?
Dude, kids, I've been swamped, dude. You wouldn't believe it, but also AC Pristroda comes in with a weed. There we go. That's fantastic. Also, anyone wanting to know more about the Holy Eight, look up Reem DP Riley, and that'll take you right there.
I'll pop the link in the private chat. You can
actually, do the link. What I said might be weird. I don't know what that might take you somewhere else.
I don't have time to play social media games, unfortunately. So my social media skills are quite lacking. Mine
are too. I'm trying to upgrade a little bit. Like I'm using Twitter in earnest for the first time in my life. What's weird is that I have I have my Instagram as well, and I'm posting a lot of my YouTube shorts on there, mostly just so my family could see it more easily anyway.
That's fair.
My dad's he's only gonna see it if I post it. So let's see, copy link.
Yeah.
Boom.
On the Reem account, I go through short dossiers about every single one of the archangels, and through that, it starts to tell the story of how the Holy Eight came to be and how they arrived at the point that they were when the book starts.
Yeah, because it's implied it's been around for a minute, obviously, because that's a question. Like, you don't have to tell me. This is just to sate my own curiosity. Was there a number 8? Or was there another number 7 before Gabriel?
Gabriel would be the 8th.
Oh, 8th. Okay, I thought. Oh, yeah, no, someone mentioned 7 when I was listening. Yeah, anyway. Yeah, got it mixed up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are 7 other angels in Division 8 or in the Holy 8 squad. Raphael, let me see if I can run it all down for you. Raphael, Michael, Uriel, Jagudiel, Barachiel, Jeremiel, Sealtiel, and Gabriel.
That's a mouthful.
Yes. So all of them were chosen for specific purposes through the R&D side of the cybernetics program.
I'm actually wearing your G Sedai
I
hoodie.
see
here.
You're wearing the moon slap. Nice.
Yeah, I saw it. I'm like, that's really cool. Truth is, my neck, I have such a fat, thick freaking neck. I had to cut this so that I could actually breathe while I wear it. The rest of it fits, but yeah.
Yeah, it's all good. I prefer V-neck shirts, and those are more expensive to produce.
According to Maji-chan, we're lucky I'm even wearing a shirt, frankly. But
this is true.
Also, yeah. Hey guys, got my nuts here on stream. Check it out. Anyway,
nuts are around your neck.
Oh yeah. This is actually a really nice, old, expensive one too. Normally, kukui nuts are whole, and they just paint them, and then they are hollow, so they break really easily. These are triple laminated, kind of oiled, and these things, very old, family thing there.
Very cool.
But yeah. No, I you and I kind of like stuff too. I saw you and I've talked about your store. You got all your cool nonsense as well. It's I love knickknacks, man. That's great.
Oh, my cool nonsense here. You can see it.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
All of my crazy cool nonsense. I've got specialty commission art, bones.
Is that a bear skull?
That is a wolf skull.
I thought it might be a wolf, but for some, wolves are kind of rare, so I thought it might be a bear skull instead. That's really cool, dude.
No, it is a wolf skull that Royce's wife Albany lovingly took care of.
Yes,
and got it prepared for me.
That's no, she knows her stuff. I just between you and me and anyone watching the show, for the barbecue, I am going to be contributing to her collection there with something pretty special that she may not be able to get otherwise. So that is something I'm looking forward to there as well. But yeah, so
the meat for the barbecue.
I'll bring myself anyway. Also, I oh dude, I love all the memes about it, man. It's gonna be such a fun time.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
So how about this? Let's talk about methods of collaboration. Knowing when someone should seek help with something creatively, and knowing when they should just try to do it themselves. Do you have any metrics or advice in regards to that? Knowing, like, do as much as you can, but only as much as you can. Don't waste time on something that maybe you could, for a reasonable sum, pass on to somebody else.
Yeah. Um. The old adage, "You got to spend money to make money," is absolutely true. You know,
100%.
you have two, and this is something I talk with everyone about. It's not just here, but even in coaching and personal conversations. You only have the same amount of time everybody else has. So if you're trying to do four people's job in one person, it's going to take forever, and that's a waste of
And
your
truth is, you're
ability.
probably not good enough in at least a couple of those areas to,
Yep.
justify the money that you think you're saving. Like
Yeah.
example, like this is
It
a cover
shows.
by Joe Son. I don't know what your artistic, like, drawing and painting capability is. I don't imagine it's this good though. Look at that, man. It came out really nice. Or even like on the back here. That's another one, the white hair promotional
Yes.
art you had made a while at some point.
Yep. I had that. All of that is commissioned because my artistic skill lies in stick figures.
I could have gotten better when I was younger, maybe, and I could still maybe if I tried, but like I got into painting 3D models, and I entirely stopped with the flat work. I can paint a little bit, but that's about the extent of it, man. Like I painted
I've
art.
never tried. Um, hmm, Something to think about. But 30 years ago, I attempted to create a satirical superhero called Captain Obvious, and I bought a how to draw the way guidebook and
Yeah, I've seen those. Yeah,
labored over it for months, sketching away. And when I finally put all the pieces together to draw Captain Obvious, he ended up looking like a humanoid gorilla in a big red flat suit and a dopey look on his face, and his ears didn't fit right on his head. And
yeah,
I
that's how
I
that goes
stared at it
usually.
and I went, yeah, not for me.
This is not my skill set. Maybe
Yep.
I could get okay someday, but that ain't nobody got time for that.
Yeah. Well, I've always wanted to be a writer. My mother thought that I was going to be like the Gen X version of Jack Kerouac, and I was just going to disappear one day and then reappear 10 years later with all of this weird worldly experience and a bunch of novels about my strange adventures as I backpacked around the planet. And it never happened, but I always wanted to do this. And back then, you know,
Based on what you've said about your younger years, you seem like the kind of person who maybe would have done that as well. Like my dad had his own version of that. That's how
yeah,
a kid who had
I
never
was,
heard of a dolphin before ended up in Hawaii.
mm, yeah, I was a pretty wild dude, and but never actually made it. I mean, I made it to Seattle once, and back,
I'm
and that was
sincerely, I'm very sorry. Actually,
well.
Seattle, depending on when, Seattle might have not been that bad at the time. It probably was
It
okay.
was right at the start of the grunge music phase. You know, when Nirvana was starting to take off, and
So
you know,
still dirty, but like with
yeah,
all the tech stuff going on, and that was kind of a cool time to be around, actually.
yeah,
So
the garage band explosion. I was like, a lot of these bands come from Seattle, so I want to go see what Seattle's actually like. So I went to Seattle and got stuck, and
oh no,
yeah,
what a
and then
shitty
I
place
had
to
to,
get stuck.
yeah, and I had to work to make just enough money to get back on the bus and at least get out of Washington State so that I could get where I needed to go, which was all the way back to the East Coast.
bro. You like it's unbelievable how it is now. Like it's always been a city and has the smells of a city, but every time I've gone there in like in the last 2 to 4 years, everywhere, even the nice areas, just smells like piss. Everywhere, dude. It's inescapable. It's really like my nose doesn't work, so if I smell it, everyone smells it. It has to just be awful, especially for people who with a advanced sense of smell, like my dad and my grandma. But
About
yeah,
the only
man.
good thing that came out of that trip was I had one fun night where I was blown out of my mind on acid and thoroughly convinced that there was a dragon nobody else could see sitting on top of the Space Needle looking at me.
Oh no. Oh, and that's the thing too. Seattle is deceptive. You can get lost, and there almost every area has this an underground aspect that most people don't see, or like it's not as easily accessible.
I found
And
cities around the US are always like that.
yeah. It's like you have it's almost like a low fantasy story like set in our world. It's like there's the above ground, like the standard stuff everybody sees. It's on the postcard. And then there's the real city underneath it. It's like
Yep.
completely different place.
That was my inspiration for the opening part of G-Side number 2, the book, was to show a little bit more detail about what the actual ground level world was like, because in the first one you got a glimpse at how I corrupted Harajuku into this terrible prostitution area.
It basically just made it more another Shinjuku is what is the impression. Yeah.
Well, that was the idea, was that from after a couple of 100 years and being isolated behind large walls, the seedier aspects of certain parts of Tokyo would bleed into the surrounding areas.
100% too.
Yep. So that was what I was doing with that. But when I was writing 2, specifically in order to better detail the character that was introduced in the beginning, who a lot of people seem to really enjoy too, was to show what the ground floor was like, and in great contrast to what everyone is like in the corporate buildings. It's like heaven and hell in physicality. In real life, everyone up in the towers all seem like they're well-to-do, they're dressed very clean and pristine.
They're
and
in reality in some form or fashion. It's like down below, a lot of people are, with all giving themselves this. They're using virtual reality escapism,
looking for escape.
Yeah, through chemical, electronic, stimulant, whatever they go, like the more bestial aspects of humanity. They're finding escape in some form or fashion, and it's very hedonistic, very destructive to self.
All those things are still there in the high-rise megacorp, but it's all hidden behind the veneer of clean and bright and
the
shiny
image.
Yeah,
because it's like a nice paint job on a car that's falling apart.
Yeah,
or has a major.
Because that's how I saw cities as I traveled to them. They look really, really cool as you're driving up, and then you get into the streets, like, gee, good God,
I'm not gonna make it
happening right now.
Oh yeah. It's like the first when I was still married years and years ago. I forgot what month it was, and we went to Capitol Hill in Seattle. Holy smokes! It was middle of festival time. I completely forgot, and I had to explain some stuff to my wife, who grew up even more conservative than me. She's like, "Oh, why are they wrestling over there in that restaurant?" I'm like, "They're not wrestling."
Yeah.
Like, no. Also, secret. Party is his middle name. Yeah, I think so.
Sure seems that way. I've had some weird stuff happen to me. I mean, I live outside of Philadelphia, or as I call it, Filthydelphia, and
all that brotherly love is really shining through.
Not at all. It used to be so much nicer, But even then, when it wasn't, like 20 some years ago, I started hitting the club scene, and that had that culture shock. We were driving up towards the city, and you see the big, brightly lit buildings on the
It's almost
horizon.
like a billboard. It's like the
Yeah,
front looks
you're
all
like,
nice and pretty and colorful, and then the back is just like mechanical grime and
yeah, you go,
weird stuff
you're
going
looking
on.
at it going, this is awesome. I'm going to Philadelphia. And then you get in there and you're like, good Lord. And then like I had a homeless crackhead stab me in the stomach with a razor blade, like a box cutter razor blade.
At least it did. Like there, I use them every day, so like the blades on them aren't that long, but dude, that
No, but they're
blows.
sharp.
Oh, yeah, they are.
Yeah. And
No, I can
like
see that.
it was the stupidest thing. He was arguing with somebody else, and I just happened to come out of the club right when he decided that he had to stab somebody. Like there was no rhyme or reason to it.
Oh yeah, a good friend of mine. He was in my small group. He was his girlfriend at the time ended up being his fiance because he proposed. He brought all of her family and his family to to New York for the proposal. What a Chad. And of
Yeah.
course, she's a sweetheart. She said yes. And he was walking around with her brother and his father the next day. And a random person who he had never met put a long knife in a pipe and stabbed him through the vertebrae in the back of his neck. They
Jesus.
said another centimeter in any direction, and it would have severed his spinal cord. And the fact that he survived is a medical miracle. But it's just like just some random person. Like no provocation, no warning, nothing, just out of an alleyway. It's like it's like one of those things like, oh, I know those things happen. They never happen to me kind of thing. And
yeah,
freaking
everybody
happened
thinks
to him,
that will
man.
never happen to you until it happens to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Been attacked by enough dogs to know that like things happen, man. But yeah, so let's get some even more specific. Like for someone who's maybe writing for the first time, or maybe they want to publish for the first time. It's like obviously the more you're able to do for yourself, the less upfront costs there is going to be.
Of
Maybe
course.
if they're an artistic person, maybe they can do the cover, maybe, or they can do the art and they can have someone else format it. But it's like, what advice would you give to people in regards to like what you should try to do in regards to writing, like publishing your first book, and maybe things you should definitely pass on to somebody else if you can?
You cut out, so I didn't hear the end of that.
Oh yeah, I know you cut out too. Yeah, just bad connection. That might be me. But what especially for a first time writer, what should they try to do or try to teach themselves how to do, and maybe what would be a better thing to pass on to somebody else, especially publishing your first book? Obviously, this comes down to individual skill set, money, all that jazz. But
I have some spicy takes on that, so maybe some not so spicy ones, but a few.
Wait a spicy take. Spicy take. Oh, I love those, man.
Yeah. All right. Honestly, the thing that doesn't cost you any money is the writing or the drawing. That's you. Whatever your talent is, do it.
If you have the artistic, even like in the modern day too, even if you are able to work AI a little bit, you can maybe do your own book cover. There's a lot of tools and ways to do it. Maybe probably not as good as hiring an artist, frankly, but
yeah,
it can be done.
Definitely. Yeah, for the most part. I mean, it's inevitable. They're going to end up having 6 fingers, and their clothes are going to, blend into their hairline. But it can be passably humanoid, maybe.
Just don't look at their eyes. Anytime I put my stuff through an AI filter, like one eye will be perfect and the other will be like,
Yep. I'm not a huge fan of using the AI stuff as a compensation for art. I've never done it. I hire people. I've spent thousands of dollars on art for my various books and projects.
I have too, and I've never even published anything.
And
Like
the reason
I'll use
for
it for
that-
like I'll use it as a filter for thumbnails, but I never generate anything with AI.
Mm.
I'll use it maybe to filter something here and there.
But the true reason for that is it's a test of my ability to convey the concept to someone that can then turn it into something I have to look at. So if they turn it into me and it doesn't look right, it's because, in my opinion, I didn't describe it correctly.
Sometimes it's an incompatibility of vision. I've seen that happen too, even in my own stuff. But usually it comes down to you not properly conveying what you truly want, or possible. Like I've seen I've had two artists way back when that just couldn't really. They either didn't want to or could not do what I wanted them to do, and at least and one of them was honest upfront about it. Oh, cutting out. There you go.
Yeah, we had another hiccup there.
I know. Don't you love the internet? Welcome to the internet. What would you prefer?
The standard advice is do what you know that you can do. If you aren't sure that you can do it, or it's not working out the way you want it to work out, find somebody you know that does and talk to them. Either they can give you the advice you need, or they can do it with you or for you. You know, that's their skill.
100%.
And if the more people you know that have skills, and this is why networking is so important, the more opportunities you have. I go to Kevin when I want things that he's my artist of the comic, when I want things that are very anime inspired. I go to Livia, who did the white hair back cover, when I want character commission pieces. I go to my friend Elvina, who did most of the concept art for Legacy of Heroes. And then I went back to Kevin and I said, hey, these images I have, these are the concept art pieces. Now I want to see what they look like in anime form.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you did have him do that, didn't you?
Yep.
And I still need to get into Legacy of Hero stuff. Like I'm all in on G Sedai, and I like the idea of Legacy of Heroes. It comes down to time. I haven't quite explored everything yet.
It's all good. That's going to be my real attempt to dive hard into comic book creation. G Sedai, the comic book, is a way to spread the story out to another audience that maybe doesn't like novels as much, but still they can enjoy the story itself because we all know that it's awesome. But I'm learning how to make comic books through it. And when I'm at a point where I have learned what I feel I need to know to create a superhero comic book that's actually going to be worthwhile, then I'll move into that and start doing Legacy Hero stuff the way I want to do it. Because that has such an expansive universe that it could go in incredible directions, and hopefully I'll have the money to make it happen.
Yeah, hire a variety of talented artists for covers and have your storylines all mapped out and really do the traditional media. Like that's the thing too. Like writing for a comic or a manga is so different than writing for a novel or like traditional kind of writing. Because and like my favorite example, I wish I had the book one of the books my ex-wife got rid of, but the All-Star Superman is maybe my it's in my top 3 favorite graphic novels of all time. Really like favorite comic book character, really like that take on the story. But the first page is the entire Superman backstory condensed into like one page, and it's amazing. It helps that it's such a familiar tale, but to be able to put the entire backstory onto one page that way and have it work and have it be really good, that's something really special that you can only do with a comic book that like a novel can never do. It's a very, very cool thing.
And like because of my connection with guys like Mike S. Miller, you know, when I was working on setting all this stuff up, I was DMing them going, hey, how do you do this? You know, what am I doing? Yeah. I don't know. I've never done it before. So
I know.
And like I play a little bit of piano. I play a little bit of violin, but when I want
That's
music to accompany my fund my comic campaigns, I call Everly Music.
He calls Justin of Mr.
Yeah.
Everly Music, who produces tremendous rock and rhythm sections.
Yeah, and he's always come through for me, and
He just knocks it out of the park. It's
He
pretty
does.
incredible, actually. He
I'm
always
always looking
he
for
always says
ways
like,
to
"Oh, I'm
make
not doing enough, or I'm too slow." I'm like, "What? Shush."
Yeah, the humble brag.
It's like, "Oh, I could have done that way better or way differently." What's funny is
I love
is like he makes it all, but like when he made the song for my channel, The Ultimate Kahuna, love that song. He sent me 2 versions of it. He's like, okay, one of them's mastered here, but honestly, I couldn't hear a difference. But go ahead, here they both are. I listened.
Yep.
I'm like, oh, I could definitely hear the difference.
Yeah, he did the same for me. And
Oh,
like
that's
these
funny.
are the things that I look at as someone who's not just here to make cool stories and share them with my friends. I'm actually trying to make this something that justifies itself and can
A
grow.
livelihood, something that can,
Yeah.
like a real. There's a word, but I'm not thinking of the right one. I know, like, legacy is part of it as well, obviously, or at least I
A little
assume
bit,
it
yeah.
is.
That's always my real standpoint. These books are, if I can get it to a point where it makes enough money to pay for itself, eventually it will become something that my daughter and her kids can reap the benefits of. So there, yes, that's a legacy. You know, I built Whimsyland to help people, and Whimsyland Productions is going to do the same thing, because if I build up the scratch to go into animation and like make that happen, I
That
can
would be so cool, dude.
score by Everly Music, because I will hire Justin to do all the music for the show or film. You know, my animator will be hired and paid and part of the business, and hopefully they will continue to work with me until I die on producing more and more cool stuff. Every opportunity you have to make a connection with somebody who has a skill or a talent that wants to use that is an opportunity for you to make that something that will carry on for years and
Oh
put money in
yeah,
people's
yeah.
pockets. I mean, my artist for the comic book, Kevin, I paid him probably $7,000 in total.
Art, for those who don't know, art is expensive.
He's fair. He's very fair on his pricing, but it's because when I work with
it is the
somebody,
market, and it is
yeah,
the kind of standard. And plus, you like, truth is, we don't like, you could just hire someone from the Philippines and probably like knock it out of the park and for like $40 in a chicken. But you want to pay a fair price, and you want to get a good product for that fair price. At the end of the day,
yes. Yeah, but at the same time, I feel as the guy who's hired him to help me produce these comic books, that he needs to be steadily employed. So he's not just doing the comics for me, he's doing other projects that I want art for, and I keep him steadily paid ever
doing
since
other
we
work.
first started. Yeah.
And
Because
that's how it should be. It's like we all want to do the Brandon Sanderson thing, truth be told. Like
he's got a huge team behind him. It's not just Brandon Sanderson.
That's what I'm talking about. Like that's what I'm saying. We all want to make something like that. We want to make something like Dragonsteel, like where you have dedicated artists, you bring in other artists for other projects. You have people who handle this, and that, and you have experts in every area. That way, like it's his name, but it's a company, and it's a pretty tremendous company, truth be told.
Yep, it is. Spicy take. I think he's a little overrated, but
Oh, I understand that. But it is hard to argue with both the results and, like, again, not every book of his does that well, but Stormlight, maybe it's one of my favorite fantasy series, truth be told. I really like Stormlight.
yeah, it's a good book. But a lot of that was the maneuvering with the Wheel of Time.
It almost replaced Wheel of Time. is it like Wheel of Time ends, Stormlight begins. That's kind of
Yeah.
that seems to be kind of how that went.
Yeah, but it's a little bit of playing in somebody else's sandbox.
Stylistically, a bit. And he even has the same narrators, so that like I completely see your point.
Yeah,
But like I'm going through the Wheel of Time right now, and there's a lot I enjoy about it. But I do think Stormlight is quite a bit better. Again, there is an aspect of standing on the shoulders of giants, but it's not like Batman in the Shadow. It's not like a copy paste situation.
no.
So it's like
Far from
we're all
it.
inspired.
It is, but
Yeah.
but his legend began from finishing somebody else's work, and then part of his success was based on the audience that came for somebody else and accepted him. That's Russian roulette. He could have done it and everybody went,
If it was bad, they would have never forgiven him.
Yeah, this is not what Jordan wanted. You're horrible, go to hell. That's how the internet works. So, I have to give him.
Also, Joe coming in here. Wait. I know what he would say about you. I think he.
That just makes you a beta cuck.
Yeah.
Oh,
But,
sorry.
I'm not going to go into the internet war. Continue what I was talking about.
No, 100%.
Yeah, but to that point, Brandon Sanderson has a huge team, so you need a team.
No man or woman is an island. You do what you can to the best of your ability, and if you are able to, you find other people to fill those vital roles.
Right.
It's like me. I have some artistic talent in different areas, but I would never do my own book cover unless it was like a self-published, like autobiographical, like freaking want to see my kahunas kind of book. I could do that cover. Just
And
me
Spicy
standing like wearing coconuts or something. Who knows?
Yeah. Spicy take number 2 is I don't believe in beta readers.
That is a very spicy take in the modern author kind of world. I'm curious. Explain to me why. I don't wholly disagree with you, but I am curious as to your reasons, sir.
Well, what's super interesting about it is when I created my Discord for Authors Laureate, one of the things that we did was a beta reading system. We called the book club, which is when somebody finished a draft, they submitted it to the group and anyone could opt in to read it and then give critique, feedback, and advice. Yeah. So we would have discussions about it. And essentially that was a beta reader environment. But the reason I say I don't believe in beta readers is because predominantly people beta read from their friend pool.
I think that's a big problem for some people.
Yes.
I think there are better ways to do it. Like I don't take all of her advice, but Jenna Moresi on YouTube, she does have very good beta reading advice. She gets a pool of people. They don't really they're aware of each other, but they don't know her. They're not friends.
Right.
And she has specific format, specific questions. Like, did this come across? How did this chapter make you feel in this? It's very structured that way. I think if you're going to do it, that's maybe a better way.
Yeah, and it's a marketing system that they use to determine whether or not something hits with a audience by inviting
target demographics
people.
And such.
Yeah. And if you do it that way, sure, that's fine. I'm not going to argue that one. But most independent creators are not doing it that way. And beta reading from your friend pool is the same as my mommy said I write good books.
Yeah. I've had that whole thing too. My mother and grandma read a short story I did a while ago. You need to publish this. I'm like, no. I could make it better, but no.
Now, that said, my mother reads all of my stuff, and I'm probably one of the few creators who can say that my mother will call me after she reads one of my new releases and tell me everything that's wrong with it.
She calls.
Hello,
For
dear. I wanted to
for
let you know that your character
hours.
arcs were shit.
Mhm. For hours. That's just how my mother is. But I would never hand it to her and say, give me feedback, because she's my mom. I would not hand G Said I 3 to you, because you're my friend.
Yeah, yeah.
And regardless of how we want to believe, but regardless of how we want to believe that, yes, our friends will be brutally honest with us, they're still already biased towards you because of
100%.
your friendship.
It's kind of like trying to critique yourself in a way. It's like you're going to view it with more bias than you would someone you've never met and that would never know.
Yes.
100%.
And a little bit of why I behave the way I do with our community that's kind of come together around Royce is because, as an editor, I have to keep myself a little bit separated from all of you guys so that I can professionally analyze your work when you come to me and say, I need help.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. It's like it's not the same thing, but the same principle applies for work. I'm the boss. I can
Yep.
be friendly, but I can't be friends
Your
with
friend.
my workers the same way that they can be friends with each other. Because I've done that. I've done this work long enough. I have done it, and like I had to fire my best friend because he just couldn't hack it, man. And that's all there was to it. We were very lean. It just didn't work. Another friend, he basically drank himself to near unaliving himself. It was just very bad. Oh, it's like there's two, like we hire a lot of military people in my construction kind of industry, and get like there are two basic archetypes. The ex like the retired kind of military guy. The one is really obedient, well adjusted, hardworking, like super super awesome, like so good that we can't keep them in my industry. And then the other is also very obedient, but drinks a lot, has a lot of substance abuse problems, and wishes they had died overseas. Like I wouldn't call it an archetype if I hadn't seen it like 7 or 8 times. It's a pretty severe problem, actually.
Yeah, it's a shame. Why I don't believe in beta readers, because anyone is already biased towards you, and they can't give you fully objective response because they're your friend.
Yeah. And of course, like it's different if like you have your finished book, they review it, and it's always interesting to see stuff like that. But but they're not influencing the story and the creation. It's and again, I think there's a similar problem. Like things that are written by committee, I think can have a very similar problem. Too many cooks. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Always. But if
gotta make eggs for your wife. Careful, man. She's feral. Anyway, love you, Katie.
Now, ARC's advanced review copies, totally different thing. And yeah, you can spread that to your friends because that's reviews. That's them giving you feedback after the fact. But a lot of the time I get drafts from people when I do editing for them, and there's comments from folks that I know that they're friends with in the document, and I look at them just as critically as I look at the actual text in the manuscript, and I'd say 85% of those comments are, this is so cool, I really like this part. And I'm like, it needs this needs to be addressed, the sentences are run on. Like, I understand that you're looking at it from the point of view of a potential reader, yes, but
they need more than that.
You should still be looking at it for the flaws that it has so that they can be addressed.
100%. Like, I think in my group, one exception I found with critiquing my own work is Sybil. He's not active, super active, but he's around. And have you ever read any of his stuff? I'm curious.
Yes.
It's very different, but I really like the way that he writes, and he writes really clean in a very short period of time. It's impressive, but he's the only person in my friend group where he reads it kind of like an editor. He gives me like real editing notes when he reads anything of mine, and it's pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm. And on top of all of that, why do we need validation on something that's not finished?
Yeah,
That's my final and most brutal question about beta readers. Why do you need people to tell you that it's cool before you're done making it cool?
I think it has to do with a lack of confidence in your own ability.
Right.
Which like the not having confidence in your own ability, I do understand it, even if I disagree with it fundamentally on some level, or at least displaying it that way. But it also shows a lack of confidence in the story. If your story is not strongly tethered to you and what in your vision for it, you haven't figured it out yet, in my opinion.
Right.
And not to say that you can't with help figure it out, but again, I think you need a critique partner or an editor. And I think that, like, again, that's where someone like you comes in.
Need an editor, and that's not me saying that because I want your money. You always need an editor.
You would not believe how many people I've talked to in the last couple of years who are like, "Oh, I don't need an editor."
Yeah, you do.
Editors need editors, man.
Yes.
You need another set of professional eyes to look at the damn thing. There's so many things, like, even if you're really good, there's so many things you miss just because your eyes have glazed over it 1,000 times. Like, even with you, I mentioned, like, when I reviewed G Set I Won, I privately messaged you, I think, and I was like, hey, I found this, there's a little, what was it, misspelling, like, right here. So you're like, oh, yeah, I left that on purpose. I'm like, okay, fine.
Yeah,
Thought I could help. Fine.
that was nice, and I really appreciated that. That told me that you were actually paying attention to the story, and it was enjoyable enough that it had your attention for that typo to jar you for a moment. That was the whole point. And I like that, and there was a reason for it that's kind of stupid. And the reason for it was that I had a dream one day. This is my, MLK moment. I have a dream that one day I'm going to be at a convention and somebody's going to, like, come up to my booth and say, I really enjoyed your book, but on, page 87, you misspelled this, you misspelled, like, motorcycle or something. And
you
I
said
can
motorcycle with an S or some shit.
Yeah. And I can look across the table at them and say, yeah, I left that in for you.
Now, what you really want? You want, like, one of those annotators or people who write in the margins of the books, or, like, like with a little sticky notes, like, put them in, like, the little sticky tabs they put in there, like, for all their favorite quotes. Have you ever met anyone? I can never do that to my precious book. I don't know how they do it. I can never.
You don't want
I don't
to see
understand
my
them.
personal copies of my own stuff. I write.
Oh, well, that's your stuff, though. That's different. Yeah. It's way different than, like, say, like, I have this. It's like, oh, look, I have this bande dessinée of Bouncer. I'm going to write in this.
Yeah.
I'm going to write in this. Okay, this is appropriate. I'm going to write in this beautiful French art. But yeah, there's no way. I can never do that. Also, French art is best art. Sorry, the rest of the world. Like, in regards to painting and, like, stuff of that nature, I'm always, like, I'm never not impressed. Like, don't get me wrong, there are wonderful American comics and manga, Japanese manga and such. But every now and again, like, I always go back to the French. I'm like, how do they do it, man? Like, their political takes are bad, and their recent military history also very bad. But their art is damn good.
Yeah, I think that's because they don't stigmatize it as much as other countries do.
Yeah, I could see that. I think maybe partially art is a bit of a lifestyle over there, maybe more so than it is here. Like, here and in Japan, it's like it's a job. but I've met some French people, and just like everything they do is like in some way artistic. Not all of them, but
But
some of
it's
them
all
I've met.
it's only been a job in, the last say maybe 40 years, really, in the
At
West
least a
and in
commercial
Japan.
job, yeah.
Yeah. It's only been a lucrative profession very recently, and it's still a very small environment. Before that, the arts were under attack all over the West. They were being cut from public education. There were
Yeah.
people who were trying to do personal art classes, and those
I
eventually just
had one of those when I
petered
was
out.
growing up because I was
Yeah.
homeschooled for a long time, and yeah, Mrs. McKay, I'll never forget it. She showed us all the owl droppings with bones in them in the woods. Is great. But
Yeah,
yeah,
and
man.
but they all fall aside because culturally we don't put any emphasis on the necessity of creative endeavors. It's all about financial generation.
Which can't it? That's a question. Is being financially motivated a detriment or a or a positive thing in regards to art and creation? That's a very broad question, but
I'm going to call it a detriment, and I'm going to back that up with a bit of science because
knowledge,
yes,
science.
because the part of your brain that is creative is not the part of your brain that is logical. They're separate sections of your cognitive process. So
Sorry, go ahead.
I love Bill and Ted. If your goal is to produce things that make you money, you're not using your
You're
creativity.
using your left brain, right?
Yeah.
It is the left hemisphere brain.
You're deciding by the numbers. You're looking at the statistics. What do people like? Well, that's what I'm going to write about. What are the top 5 tropes that people seem to enjoy in this particular genre? I'm going to apply those to my manuscript and make characters that are using those tropes. Well, they're only designed around that trope. So
they
they're
turn it into a formula rather than a true creative endeavor.
So they're cardboard cutouts. It's one of my recurring posts that people seem to like the most on Twix is when I say your character's cardboard, try again, because it's just made for the purpose of garnering attention. It's not to tell a story. You're not looking to tell a story. You're trying to sell a book.
Oh, 100%. Like how many times in recent years have we seen the evil Superman fucking character?
Right.
How many
Exactly.
times? Like there are some that are well done, but it's first, don't make Superman evil. He's Superman. Let him be fucking Superman for once. Secondly, a lot of it's just like lazy writing, frankly.
It's writing by
you can
numbers.
do bet like if you have to depend on it's like, oh, we need to convert the ultimate good into the ultimate bad for this story to have impact. That's not a story. That's just a lazy trend. That's the right word. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Now there is nothing wrong with making money off of your art. That's
100%.
a separate brain, and it should be a separate service. It should be a separate part of your thought process. You create the art. Now you apply the logic to sell it to the most people. So the art has already happened. The creative side is done. Now you're working from the logic side to get it out to the masses. That's what I do. To
like
me,
that's what Eric July is very good at. He has the left hemisphere working for the business side of the Rippaverse. Like he had that
Right.
lightning in a bottle moment. He had a very powerful vision, and he
Mhm.
sold it to the right amount of people at the right time, and it was wildly successful at launch. And he's kept that ball rolling, and now he's has all the business side figured out as well, and that's why it's become this big company, and that's why there are so many haters like, oh, look at him, he didn't even try. I'm like, dude, he did. It was a lot of work, but he did do the right thing at the right moment, but shut the hell up. Make your own stuff.
Yeah, and I do to a
Real
certain
quick
extent.
from Maji. I needed to know where the story needed work. Turns out it was all of it.
No,
Oh,
you wrote the whole story. The story is there. What we're doing is refining it into its. That's what editing and coaching is about. It's taking it and almost like forging.
I was about to
you're
say, dude,
transforming.
right there. I was about to say forging too.
Yeah, you're transforming. You created the shape of an object. Now we're refining the materials so that it is the most high quality form of that object that it can be.
You're reheating it. You're hammering out all of the flack, getting rid of all the stuff that isn't necessary. You're refining what is there. You're making it like you're taking the good and hopefully making it great. Because like a good editor should not just point out flaws. They should also help somebody take the good things about their story, the things that they are just naturally good at, and make that even better. In
Yep.
my opinion, not like sorry, I made that. I should have made it a question, but yeah,
No, it's all good. That's what I try to do for everybody that hires me for editing. Is I'm going to tear your story apart. There's no there's no doubt that that's going to happen. I'm going to point out every little imperfection, and then we're going to fix it. But I have to point it out first before we can. So that's all part of the process. But really, I'm there to help make it better. That's all that an editor should be doing. I've had conversations with AC's wife about it because she's getting into it a little bit herself.
yeah, she is.
One of the most wonderful things about Katie's questions to me is they're always her trying to navigate her responsibility as an editor and her personal feelings as a person. I think it's really important.
Yeah,
She comes to me to talk about these things because treat it left brain. I can treat it very logically, but in order to make it better, I have to apply the creative side as well.
yeah, you have to use the the truly creative aspect of yourself. Like if you can't you could tell you could if you use your left side, you even creatively you could see what's wrong with something and point it out. But come in again and make and guide them into making it better. That's not left brain. That's right brain.
Yes. But the trouble with creating to sell is that it's essentially paint by numbers. Yes, you can take that kit and you can reproduce Starry Night with the paints and the brush.
Take the hero's journey and apply a paint job on it, and that's you can do that over and over again. Probably pretty successful.
You can do that. Yeah, you can do that, and then you can show it to your friends and say, "Look, I painted Starry Night," which is one of the most famous paintings, and your friends will go, "Yay, cool!" But you didn't actually create Starry Night. You didn't envision it and then bring it to life on canvas. The original artist did.
It wasn't. It was a skill. It's still a skill, but it's not truly creative.
Right.
The true art of creation is creating something, hopefully new, or at least your version of something, not just a copy. Like anyone could read a book and write their own version of it. It probably wouldn't even be that hard. Like real quick, yo, Guilty and Alicia from Birdie and Books. Thanks for stopping by, guys.
Nice to meet you.
No, she's great. I had her on a panel that I was invited to, and yeah, very quiet girl, but very, very good. And she loves romance books, so we talked about that for a while, and how it's not designed for men. But
no, very much so. It's not designed for men, but every once in a while, it can just barely skirt and kind of scrape against the male interest.
The right romance author can write a story that will occasionally these two, like Outlander is a good example. I
Yes.
love the Outlander books.
It is.
They're very long, but they're very well written, and they're very. I don't know if women like them as much as men, but I think a lot of men like that story as well. I think she
Yeah.
just is able to hit a lot of demographics with it in regards to interest there. But yeah, occasionally I'll dip into like actual like normal ordinary quote unquote romance and find something worthy of my time, but that's pretty rare.
Right. But in order to, on the
Heyo.
subject we were talking about, hey Wrangler, if you're reproducing somebody else's creation, it's not a creation. And that is why I'm personally keep coming out against AI writing.
I'm entirely against AI writing.
Yeah, if you
Like,
want to
for
make
creative
random
endeavors.
images, if you want to make random images of your original concepts to help you visualize and grow your ability to write your project and your characters more accurately, more power to you. I wouldn't advise selling those images,
I
but
would not either.
enjoy. AI writing, on the other hand, is totally uncreative.
People
have
who
the
act like it's actual writing, it's so like, how could you put out an AI written book? Maybe you edited it, maybe you went in and changed. That's not. It's basing a vision off of what? A prompt? That's not a story. A prompt is not a story. You could give the same prompt to 15 people and you're going to have 15 different stories.
Yeah. Iron Age Media does that constantly. And
yeah,
a
all the
prompt
time.
is an inspiration. That's all. That's what a prompt is for. It's to inspire
It's a
you
spark
to consider
that starts the fire of the story.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And it works if you're willing to actually be creative. But AI writing is no different from writing to sell books, because it's not creative. It's purely procedural. You're trying to hit beats and interests in order to sell and make money, not create.
It's like reading Save the Cat and using it like line for line. Exactly.
Save the Cat pisses me off. Spicy take number 3.
Oh, that's pretty spicy. A lot of people like that book. And Birdie in Books, Alicia points out they're using AI for children's books already. I've heard that. For
That's
the images and the stories.
Yeah, that's because children's books are formulaic.
And simple, less words. It's less likely to mess something up. It's the ideal market for AI writing and art, unfortunately. But that's the thing. Like, as a child, my mother read me like The Wonder Clock and all of these old school fantasy books and like all these Hawaiian legends and Japanese legends that I grew up with.
Very cool.
I love that. Like, do I even have some of that here? Oh yeah. F it, right here. Yeah. Check this bad boy out. It's about a popular old Japanese legend about the tiny boy and how he became a hero, and it's amazing. And it's like so like cool. AI art doesn't, like, this is a little bit like basic in some ways, but AI art doesn't have the character this does. And like, this is an old, like, basically mythology turned into a children's story.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, that's
mythology was the first family story. Mythology has always been the first family story. It was what was told around the campfire. It was told around the dinner table. That storytelling has always been a creative way to impart knowledge.
Yeah. And like truth be told, like, people act like it doesn't matter, and like kids, I've heard people say that, oh, it's just a kid's story, and like very dismissive. I'm like, I don't think you understand. Like, I'll give a little anecdote regarding that, and it's not a book. I won't use a book because we've talked about a lot of books, but when I was growing up, my internal morality, who I decided to be and try to be, was based off of roughly 3 or 4 things. Number 1 and 2, the way my parents raised me, and the Bible. That's the foundation. After that, there were 2 major franchise kind of things that formed the rest of it at a young age. One of them was Superman. Oh, that's why he's my favorite. Like, I think he's such an important character for a lot of reasons.
I'm with
But
you there.
but 2 was Return of the Jedi specifically. That third movie, episode 6, the some of the story choices, the morality quandaries and choices that were made in that story were very, very impactful. And that is like one of those being like being willing to risk it all and have faith in a person, like being willing to sacrifice of yourself because you believe that someone can be better than they are, or that they have shown to be. And that like, truth be told, life, it hasn't always worked out that way, but I'd rather live my life believing in people than not believing in people fundamentally.
Yes.
And that was taught to me by that movie specifically.
Love it. The missing link in modern media is the idealism. And that's the cornerstone of creative writing, is idealism. You take a concept like I did with G Sedai. You take a city that is well known for its rampant corporatism. You dial that corporatism up to 11 to where it's absolutely dangerous to everyone around it, and then it's
an all-consuming beast that is unforgiving and without mercy.
Yep. And then in contrast, you have 2 characters, one who doesn't know how to be a person and one who wishes that the world was much better than it is. You put those 2 together and they start to affect each other, and creates an idealized concept of friendship, of family, of morality and understanding. And then you have a great story.
Well, like let's take, like, I'll give this example. We'll take from your story, G Said I Won. Take Gabriel. He is an assassin. You could call him a soldier, but he's an assassin. That's what he is fundamentally.
I think of him more like a bioweapon.
Yeah, because he's not very human. He's maybe one of the least human amongst even the Holy Eight, who are already not very oddly human, to say the least. And Gabriel, outside of like liking pokey sticks for some reason, they're like very initially doesn't have a lot of like even his apartment, his living space is just, there's nothing there. It's sparse. He is a tool, and he's utilitarian, and through the story, partially through need, partially through the choices that are made, but a lot of it has to do with our perception of him based off of Hannah and how she sees him and what she needs him to be. And then also him stepping up to the plate. He goes from a tool, a mindless assassin, a killer. He becomes a hero. And it's very believable, and it's very good. It's hard to take that character and make them heroic that quickly. But I'd say that story does it effectively. I think it's one of perhaps the main draw of the first part of the story.
It turned out to be a lot easier because I designed Gabriel's training around the samurai, but
Bushido and the ways of living and such.
Yes, but in a corrupted form, because the environment that he's in is corrupted. So instead of being loyal to someone that you believe in, which was a samurai's ultimate joy, was to have full faith and loyalty to someone that epitomized everything that was good as far as those individual warriors were concerned.
In regards to culture, at least in society, like this is the cultural or societal good. Yeah.
He was raised to treat the corporation as that. So it didn't matter.
Almost like the god of his pseudo religion, so to say.
Yes. Yes. So he was raised to consider the corporation to be the ultimate authority. And that's why he lives a utilitarian life. Genbu, his master, refused to let him interact with people.
Even with the other members,
so
like they were discouraged from interacting or having a relationship with each other, but it kind of seems like they all kind of do, maybe outside of Gabriel for the most part.
Yes,
is there some backstory you're willing to share on that? Because I did find that curious.
That was on purpose. So the idea behind it is you have 8 killers who are capable of incredible feats of skill, and they all have different personalities. They're raised in different ways. They're specifically tuned in different ways. They're refined in different ways, and they're going to intersect a lot in what they're doing because they all work for one entity. So
and they all essentially do the same thing.
Yeah.
Basically.
So the rest of them were, on a day-to-day basis, if they're not going out and actively in a mission, they're still in Suzakushin Corporation. So they're in the break room, they're in the hallway, they're going to cross each other.
It's their 9 to 5, yeah.
Yeah. Genbu created Gabriel, and with Raphael's nanotechnology, this was a new and revolutionary system that they wanted complete control over. So Genbu created Gabriel's regiment and his training in order to keep him completely caged.
Yeah, he's an isolated animal, basically. Yeah.
He did as he was told, and then he returned home and waited for further instructions. That's it.
It was existing but not living.
Yeah.
Again,
and
that's,
on missions,
that's something he has to learn how to do. Yeah.
He would interact with other members of the Holy Eight. He knew Michael. They had interacted previously, and that exchange in the door, which is actually in comic issue number 2.
I was going to say that would be in number 2. Yeah.
Yeah. The exchange in the apartment door when Michael arrives is, I physically show you that Gabriel is afraid of Michael.
As he should be. Michael's a beast.
He's standing in the doorway. He's got the door held open. He's looking at his brother, but he's got one arm behind the door and he's death gripping his sword. Like, if this man flinches, I have to pull my weapon.
Yep.
And that's because he had understanding that from previous encounters that Michael was a superior fighter. But because he was not allowed to talk to them, he didn't develop a relationship with them, which
at least not close like it appears some of the others have. The others are joking and mocking with one another. And
Yep. Uriel, Barakiel, and Michael kind of giving each other crap, and
the maniac, the sadist, and the perfect man. Yeah.
Yep.
Go ahead. I have another thought. Go ahead.
Gabriel finds he's thrust into the situation with a young girl. Now, there's 2 points to that. Yeah. She's a girl, and whether or not we really want to admit it or not as a society, there are certain instinctual biases that we have. Men see women, and we feel at least a slight protective instinct towards them,
if not a tremendous one.
Right. So he finds this girl, and there's an instinct that's tripped. He's never had to interact with, and
there is an actual true need for it. I was about to ask you about this. I'm like, because he's such a machine of a person. He's a person who exists but doesn't live. What was your thought process in? Because while you read it, it feels right. I don't know how else to describe it, but his transformation from killer for the corporation to her protector, and like the moment he makes the decision, like that's it. There's no second guessing. It's decisions made. You cannot change your mind now, at least internally in his head. And it really does work. But I was curious about your ideas behind that.
That was part of the Bushido concept, the soul of the samurai, is that one of the things.
Birdie and Book says, I'll have to check it out. Yes, you do. The books are available on Amazon, man. If you have those links, I'll share them. But
yeah, I can grab them at some point. Give me 1 sec to explain this because it's a bit complex. So in standard training, this was actually a mistake that Genbu made. In the standard training of a samurai, part of the way that they generate that loyalty and stuff is that there is a philosophical teaching involved. There's a doctrine, and one of those things is the moral way, which is you make a decision And when you make a decision as a samurai, you do not change your mind.
That decision, like once made, there's no second guessing. It's
Right.
the path is chosen. You can't turn around. That's it.
Correct. And that's why all those cool samurai movies, they have dudes who like tragically die fighting 50 freaking men with spears, and when they could have just run away. No, they couldn't.
Shogun displayed that, actually. That's a great show.
Because in that culture, in that doctrine, once you commit to a decision, you're all in. You take it to the end. So when Gabriel made that choice to protect Hannah, there was no going back. And that's why he was like, I don't know what to do with her here in my apartment, but I decided to protect her, so now I have to.
And that's against anything, regardless of its source, any threat. And yeah, no, that's a great. So I'm curious if, like, this is something about Japanese culture. I understand it. I don't understand the why. I understand the what and the how, but I don't understand the why. Why is this idea that once you make your decision, you cannot change your mind? Is it something having to do with shame or cowardice or not being authentic? What is the driving why behind that? Do you know? Because I've thought about it a little bit, and I don't have an answer so far because it's not my culture.
In all my research, the best way I can, I guess, describe it is that there is a social underpinning that the best life is a righteous life. And when you think of the word righteous, it means that you're not making rash choices. Yeah, you're not making rash decisions. You're not allowing your anger, your confusion, your greed, your lust to overwhelm your sensibilities. Because that's
you're not bamboo swayed by every breeze. You're a strong tree.
Right. And the most forthright people are considered the most righteous in those societies. So in a lot of their social conventions, there's deep thinking, but also extremely deep emotions. They're at war with themselves a lot. And it fills their religion, their philosophy, and their evolution of society.
Yes.
People, they try to make themselves be as perfect as possible, and then they try to emulate that perfection in some way, but while being plagued by all the things that we all do. It's very similar to the concepts that I embrace with my character creator, virtues and vices, the 7 deadly sins and the 7 virtues. The
bless you.
Thank you. The more you play to your sins, the less righteous you are, and the more society looks down on you. But the more you play to your virtues, the more society accepts you as a righteous individual, and you gain social status that way. That's why the legend of
there is a direct benefit, which is the tricky thing about moral standing and the way people are viewed and what is valued.
So the way of the samurai became a idealism that fueled that legend. You know, the samurai was dutiful, loyal, they made moral choices, and they stuck to their choices. Even if they realized, and in tragic stories it happens a ton, when they realized that the choice that they made wasn't actually the right one, they still committed to it. That's why they would kill themselves. Because if they realized that they did something that wasn't correct, it reflected on their lord. It reflected on the person that they
committed to,
honored, and really believed in, so much so that they would kill themselves in order to not ruin that person's reputation.
What's also curious is sometimes based on what I've read, it was done because it was expected versus something that was done out of voluntary, wiping free of shame.
You can make an argument for either one, depending on how you want to look at it. In the legends, in the myths, in the stories, it's always a statement of I was wrong and this is how I repent for it. It also
this
plays
is my
into,
atonement. That
yeah,
is
it also
something that
plays into
Japanese
the
do
reincarnation
understand, is
cycle.
that there is a cost for everything, and if it's a severe, if it's a severe mistake, the cost is blood, essentially.
Mhm. Yes, and it also plays into their religion because they have a reincarnation system, and the belief is that the what you endure in one life affects what your next life is going to be like. So if you really truly screw up, you know, one of the first things that you should say to the person that you're apologizing to is, I hope that in my next life I don't wrong you.
I've heard of that, but I never made that connection. That's really interesting.
Yep. It's a highly complicated philosophy. It's really fun to research if you have the time to do it, but you'll go down some serious
I
rabbit
have done it a little bit, but you've obviously done it quite a bit more. That's why I love having these kind of conversations. Partially because like Japan's so fascinating for a lot of reasons, but partially is that the foundational beliefs of the society in some ways are very, very drastically different than we have here in the West.
Yes.
And I think that's part of the allure of the foreign in that way, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think a lot of people like it because it's a spin on what they already know. We all know these concepts of duty, faith, loyalty, etc., but they have a spin on it that is so different. It allows you to very easily compare and contrast and then learn something new about something that you took for granted as just part of your existence.
Well, like that isn't that that's the basic human perception, isn't it? It's like you grow up, you think, oh, like a lot of people in their head think, oh, everybody thinks this way. And that's why there's so many misunderstandings and people getting angry, because it's like they all think everybody think around them thinks the same way. And therefore, if they think like me, then them doing this is evil. And maybe it is. I do think, I do, like, just based on my own belief system, I have some pretty strong moral quandaries with some of the fundamental Japanese beliefs, obviously, at least in their execution and their reason for it. I believe
Mm,
you can do good things, but if you do good things just for yourself, I think, in my opinion, still a sin.
right.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Again,
That's fair enough.
that's a more personal observation and kind of idea that I've mm, sat upon in this
I
regard.
like it. Yeah, I like it a lot. And for Gabriel, part of what I did with him was in, again, minor spoiler, but I'm not afraid of spoilers, so I'm just going to tell you. In comic issue number 2, you also get a little bit of Gabriel's background. So the time when he was being trained by Genbu. And one of the things that he had to do, which is a real thing that indoctrinating cultures do, by the way, is he was given an animal to care for and create an emotional connection to, and then was ordered to kill it at the height of his connection to it, because Genbu, and like most indoctrinating cultures do, they wanted to force that break in psyche.
Because then that, like, if you can do that effectively, you can make them something somewhat more malleable
Yep.
and make them a more effective tool and less of a person, which ultimately, especially in the beginning of G Study 1, that's where Gabriel is at. He is at that point just a tool until he's faced with kind of, I would say, kind of two moments of decision. Decision one was helping Hannah in the first place. He could have just, done his deal and let her run away.
Yes.
Instead, he helped her and brought her home. Second part
Mhm.
was he could have given her up.
Yes.
And that was, I'd say, that's the quintessential decision of this story. That's the why. Like that moment changes, the entire book's different, obviously. In fact, if that moment changes, probably no book. But that's
Yeah,
my
true.
opinion.
Or a very different book at any rate. But that moment again was in the doorway scene with Michael, because at
Mhm.
that point in the narrative, he'd endured the train ride trying to figure out what the heck he was going to do with her. He'd sat down and had a meal with her, trying to figure out what the heck he was going to do with her. She begged him to keep her.
Because he
and
was, he was on the verge of
refused.
just, like sending her off basically. And like, but
Correct.
she appealed.
And when Michael
like,
arrived, he says the whole thing will be rectified shortly. Just, give me time, basically. I'm going to get rid of her. But then
that
he
is
finds
one
out
thing.
that the company decided, well, we're not going to wait for you. We're just going to kill her. And
I think
he
that's
already
the
had
difference.
made the
If it was an
decision.
individual might have just said, okay, we can figure something out. But
Mhm.
the faceless corporation, so to say,
Yep.
they
Yeah,
they
so
they
that
have it in
was
practice, and they're like, nope, get rid of it. That's a problem. Delete.
Genboot's second mistake, which was after training Gabriel in this particular philosophy, he then challenged the philosophy by having the company take the girl out so that she would not influence him. That
I
was
I would
Genboot's second mistake.
I would say that's even like the more fundamental mistake was making the object of his loyalty and its supposed admiration and like motivation in that philosophy to be something that is so impersonal and not true and inauthentic. I'd
Mhm.
say that was the like more core mistake of the entire decision making process there.
Yep.
Also, Maji-chan had a question real quick.
Shoot.
Wait, I gotta answer. I gotta talk like Maji.
Question for Daniel: how many comics are equal to the completion of one book? Yeah.
Of book one.
Yeah,
Like how many
I
comics?
think that's
Yeah.
the question. All right. So here's the math.
Math.
Yes, here's the math side of this. This entire story from start to finish is 18 total novels. 6 story arcs.
Shit.
Yeah, 6 story arcs, 3 books each. And they're going to cross a long period of time. Characters will grow, obviously some will die, spoilers.
I know a character who's going to die, and I'm very upset about it.
If it's the one that I know is going to die, yeah, I'm upset about it too, because I know when it's going to happen.
Son of a gun.
Yeah. So because I'm pacing the comic books the way that I am, which is essentially 2 chapters of the story just slightly expanded in 32-page issues, that means that most likely every book is going to have 6 comic books that tell its story,
man. But like honestly, if they at least maintain this quality and or get better, because inevitably every artists get better, especially when they do the same style and characters long enough. Like Berserk is a really easy example to point to in regards to improving art. But
Alley, I gave it a full ending because I didn't want that to happen. I don't want the power creep to get to a point where it's just absurd. The story has a definitive beginning and a definitive ending. It has a purpose, and when it's over, it's over. I will not be returning to Gabriel Hanna, Hasegawa, or any of the rest. I do have the option, and that was what I was kind of alluding to earlier when we were talking about Michael, of displaying the past.
It's a tricky thing to do because once you display the past entirely, like a prequel or a prelude or an expansive backstory, it does demythologize it to a degree, and that is, I think, the major risk of it. Besides doing things that make I think the worst thing you could do is do something in the past that makes the present not make sense. Star Wars.
Oh, I would not. Yeah, I would not pull a Star Wars. Sorry, not going to happen. I have too much respect for my creations.
Hey guys, look, it's not Sasuke. Look, check it out. I do love that he kind of looks like adult Sasuke. It's great.
Yeah. I was really impressed with Kevin's interpretation in art form. I really liked it. He did a great job with all the characters so far.
And Hannah looks like a child, which is important because she is young. She looks young for her age, which makes her
Yes.
beginning situation even more messed up. But
And
oh, dude,
it's gotten me some flack. There have been a couple of
I know a
times.
couple people. Yeah,
There have been a couple of times where I've gotten private and public critiques of the story where they had to rant and scream and clutch their pearls over how Hannah is portrayed. And part of it is intentional. I never actually tell you how old she is.
I have an idea, but it's still, again, yeah, it's not explicitly said.
No.
Kind of like
I never,
everything that's happened to her. It's not explicitly said.
right.
Honestly, letting your imagination fill it in might even be worse, frankly.
Right.
So there's
And-
that. But
And I did that on purpose because I thought people would fill the gap in and assume the worst out of that situation.
plus it lowers the bar to entry a little bit. It's not like a Berserk where you're like have you read Berserk?
Of course.
The opening scene is like it's like you must be this tall to run. If you can handle this scene, maybe you can handle more. The very first scene does that, which in that story is important. For you, what you did was you have the horrible subject matter, but it's not looked at with a clear view. It's not explicit, which is smart because like I wouldn't let my child read this, but I would let my younger teenager read it if I talk to them about it. That's my own metric.
And that was important to me that I didn't cross that really perverse line because it's such a sensitive subject. Yeah, you're going to be very impressed, Guilty Gearhead.
What could I show him a couple of the first pages of the comic just to give him an idea of Gabriel and Hannah? All right, so hopefully it's not too shiny here. Let's see. So right over here we got Gabriel. Yep. Looking very adult Sasuke there. Very good. I love the neon. Like, obviously the color pop is a cool idea, but having it done for the neon, the correct choices were made. Were made. Also, a guy with a cool haircut for once. Too many modern American comics have really boring people. I'm like, why would you have all these ugly, boring people? You can have a lot of that, but why not add a little, fun? It's a comic. Have a little fun with the visual there.
Yeah, for a character that dies in the opening salvo of the story, he made a fun impression. I really enjoyed writing Kurio.
Oh yeah, no, he was fun. Yeah, and here's Hannah, obviously, in her Lolita getup, unfortunately.
Yep.
But yeah, I know she gets her coat that she ironically steals right away, and was able to escape and have her time. Yeah, no, guys, the color pop, I thought it was going to be like maybe 1 or 2 splashes a page, but in some scenes it's like 5 or 6. Like majority of the panels have some color in it. It's pretty cool.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah, big selling point there.
Yeah, my daughter did a phenomenal job with that. She's an amateur artist herself, and I'm not into crowdfund. I have this weird issue with trying to sell people ideas and taking their money.
Because you know business. You don't do that. You don't sell something if you have any doubt you can deliver it, you don't sell it.
Right, exactly. And that's been a bone of contention in the indie comic space for many years. So
when I
decided
what's that one Star game that is never coming out? What the hell was that called? Starfield or what was it? It was something like that. But it's like it was supposed to come out years ago, and it's been like in development for a decade plus. They've taken millions of dollars and it's never coming out.
Right. It's unfortunate. I didn't want to do that. So I decided to do the black and white manga classic concept. And then I was, Luke Stone made fun of my comic, and I'm like, okay, well, how do I get involved in this, but also sell something?
That was it.
How do I get involved in this, but also actually sell something that's already done? And I thought, okay, why don't we do some sort of special edition? And I batted back and forth, fully colorizing. And I was like, but that's going to take away from the black and white. And the black and white
and white it's a great aesthetic, and it makes it easier to honestly, like from a practical standpoint, you don't have to add in as much detail if there's no color. You can
Right.
have kind of a blank background more often.
Yep. So one night I'm sitting up there in the Sanctum Sanctorum, aka my office, and I'm just staring at that first page, trying to figure out what I can do to make something more out of this thing that I've already made so that I can put it up and run a campaign and kind of be involved and support Luke in his new website. And my daughter naturally pokes her head in the door and she's like, "What are you doing?" Because she just sees me sitting there, and I'm like trying to figure out what I can do with this to make it kind of cool and interesting. It's black and white. Maybe what do you think? You want to consider colorizing all of these pages? And she's looking at it and she goes, "Well, why don't you just color in the neon signs?" And I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "Well, neon signs are colors. They're just backlit color signs. So if you make them all different colors, they're just going to stand out, but it doesn't change the panel at all."
It doesn't make it not monochrome. Well, it does, but you know what I mean. It's not a
it does.
colored comic. It's
Right.
color pop.
But when you think about it, if you're standing in a dark street and there are neon signs, that's the way it looks. Everything is black and white, and then there's this bright piece of color.
Because the color is so dominant, like it
Mhm.
washes out any natural color for the most part.
Yep. And I was like, that's an idea. So we sat there and talked about it for a little while, and originally we were just going to do that, just color the neon signs that showed up in the streets and things.
Alicia says Persepolis is done all in black and white. Is
Nice.
that a web comic? I've heard the name. It sounds very Greek, obviously, but I'm not sure if it is.
Yeah, I've always liked the black and white of traditional manga.
It's a graphic memoir. Yeah.
Oh, it's cool.
Yeah, no, I like that idea. That's a very cool idea. Like black and white, it's not always ideal, but because there's a lot, like color can communicate a lot of things too.
Yeah.
But it's easier to appreciate the hand-drawn aspect when it's in black and white.
Mhm.
It doesn't distract you from the story as much when it's in black and white.
Yeah, and then when I'm like, okay, Sin City did something similar, but they
They
used
did.
very specific colors. It was the one
Red for
dude,
blood.
yellow skin, red for the blood, and it was very, very light, like a light touch of color that made it stick out. And the spirit was the same way. It's very much the monochrome black and white, but he had a red tie, and like everywhere
I think
he
the
went,
Shadow did something similar as well at some point. Yeah.
yeah, he had the red scarf, but the spirit. What was so interesting about it was when they would draw the scenes of him doing the superhero thing across the rooftops. It was almost like you could barely see him except for the red tie going like this.
Yeah, I've seen.
Yeah.
I've seen images though, and it's a
Yeah.
very cool visual.
And I was like, that's really neat. And so I said to her, what if we take specific small pieces of, articles of clothing, things that are relevant to individual characters, and we colorize those as well? And she started going through it, and she's like, well, there's going to be practically every single panel where there's going to be color. And I said, okay, well, let's see how it works. Yeah, the yellow coat for Dick Tracy, very much so.
Or even the red coat from the movie too with Steven Spielberg, Schindler's List. Couldn't think of the name for a second. Like they're
Yeah.
like it's the only color that shows up, and it's very impactful when you see it a second time.
Right. And that's what I was going for. So she took all the pages and started working on them and started handing them back to me. And I went, wow, this looks really, really cool. Let's just keep rolling with it. We'll do the whole book that way. And this is something that I can sell in a campaign, a special edition version.
Yeah, unfortunately, actually, you did have that sale thing going on. I don't want to say it's still going on if it isn't, where you're selling off some of your other color pop versions of it, but
yeah, that's ended.
Oh, okay, yeah, I didn't know for sure. So yeah, my bad.
I have the issue number 2 campaign going right now, and you can get a ColourPop #1, but it's only the original cover that Kevin did. None of the variant colors or covers are available. Ugh, I'm running out of...
I know. I remember I had backed one of them, but then the artist had some personal stuff come up and he wasn't able to do it. I'm like, oh no, crap. You messaged me. You're like, oh, so he
Yeah.
isn't able to do it. What cover do you want? I'm like, the cool one. Good choice. You delivered.
Yes.
Let's see. I'm you
For the
keep
variant
talking. I'm
covers,
gonna
I
look it
just...
up so we can actually see it here.
Sure. For the variant covers for the campaigns, I wanted to do artists that are kind of known in our community, but also had very specific styles that I was looking for, which is why I tapped guys like Josan, Jose Garcia, Sean Stevens, and Luke Stone from Fund My Comic, because he does phenomenal
Luke is such a cool guy. I need to get to know him better, because like I know 2 or 3 people who I really respect, and they all get along and really respect him. It's like I have a mental list of people. I'm like, I need to know these people better, and he's one of them.
Yep. He and I are very much similar in that our whole business model is designed around helping others, and that's our philosophy of life.
It's honestly just a way to live. I don't have a business of it, but that is what I try to do creatively. I want to promote people and honor people and show off their stuff and talk about things. That's how I like to live, and that's better.
But with campaign #1, I had decided that my model for the campaigns was going variant covers and 1 black and white variant cover. So I had hired a Filipino artist by the name of Puji to do the black and white for campaign #1, but he had a medical emergency and wasn't able to finish it. So I wasn't able to do that. And then when I came up with campaign #2, I was like, why don't I see if Luke's available? And he said, yeah, sure. So
what cover did I pick? I'm trying to remember. This one is wild, by the way. This cover here. That's such a trippy style. It's almost like abstract modern or like 2000s American comic style.
He's a very frenetic artist. He's done work for like Cartoon Network and stuff.
I can kind of tell like the style. It's there. Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. And I what I said to him, which was my silly genius, is I want an image of Gabriel and Hannah on a motorcycle, like, action roaring out of the building onto the street. And this is the perspective he came up with. And when he shot it to me, I was like, dude, how did you come up with
cool
this? Like,
there's a little bit of like Gurren Lagann style in this image a little bit as well, like with the over exaggerated motion. I love that stuff.
Yep.
Also, you got Gembo here with the flashback in the red.
Yes.
That's how this is exactly how I pictured him again. Again, it's about communicating the idea in your head to the people, and this is again almost everything I see in the comic is pretty close to what I imagine, which is ideal, obviously.
Excellent. Yeah, his Gembu is... there's some details to him, like he's actually short. He's actually Korean. That is a I think it's called Gongryongpo, dragon robe that he's wearing, and it's supposed to be red and gold, but we didn't want to mess with the dragon stylized image on the fabric.
I should have caught that sooner. That slip down the side there is pretty indicative, actually.
Yes. Yeah.
And here we have... Wait, we gotta do this right.
The sniper variant.
Also, having the image of Hannah in the crosshairs of the scope is a really messed up but also kind of funny thing to have there as well.
It was a lot of fun. I was describing what I was looking for to Sean, and then he comes back and he goes, so I was thinking kind of like this. It's a bit based off of this Spider-Man cover from when the Punisher was going after Spider-Man. And it's the same thing. You had the Punisher with the rifle, and then you had Spider-Man in the... and I was like, that is exactly what I was thinking. We're on the same wavelength there. And then
Pretty
he
popular.
banged
I think this might be the most popular cover actually.
so far.
This one has 4, yeah.
Yep. So
Also,
far, that is,
no spoiler, but there is a character who loves this sniper woman.
yes.
I can see why. Anyway.
Yeah. My very small romance arc in book 1 was totally
non-romance.
intended. Well, it's totally intended to be tragic.
We do need to talk about that before you. I know I've taken up a lot of your time. I would like to talk about that before it's over, man.
Okay. Yeah, I'm down. She was a great character to design, and the playoff of her and the other character involved in that romance, or non-romance as we call it, is it was critical, I think, to a lot of people's appreciation for him.
100%, actually, yeah, a huge aspect. It adds a layer to him that was kind of hinted at otherwise, but not fully explored in the same way. It explores the for him the major difference. The conflict for him is almost all internal, because he has his external, and his external is very rigidly what it's supposed to be, but internally he's a very dissatisfied individual.
Yes.
And it's very like the final fight between him, this character, and Gabriel is very sad for that reason, because like,
ooh, I have a question for you on that one, because I want to know if you caught something.
I'll minimize it for a second. Let's see. There we go. Hit me.
As someone who read the story,
Yes.
did you catch why the battle between the two of them went the way it did?
There's a couple of things. The advancing relationship between Gabriel and his Nana and the nanites did play a part, but that wasn't entirely it. I'm almost done with the reread, but I'm trying to remember what it was exactly.
I might break some hearts if I say it, because it's such a powerful and tiny little detail.
Okay, spoilers, because I want to hear it, because I've read it before, but I'm not quite at the end of my reread right now. So spoilers for a major portion of book 1.
Yeah, I put this tiny little on purpose as part of the character of Michael. When Sumi, what happens to her towards the end of the book, when that occurs, he's done.
Yep, I noticed that.
He wanted Gabriel to finish it.
Yep. He had to give it the old college try still anyway, because that's how he is.
Yes.
But his spirit was already dead. That's
throughout the entire narrative, from the hallway scene to the elevator scene and to the final conflict, Michael is doing everything he has to do and hiding what he wants to do underneath it.
He's almost like, I hate to make this comparison, he's like Elsa a little bit from freaking Frozen. I hate making that comparison, but it's the fastest one I can make. But like everything's inside, shut up anyway.
Yeah.
But everything's held within the cage that he's held on his heart and on his mind. Partially, but partially it was built by someone else in some ways, but it was reinforced by him and his continued action.
Right. The idea behind that was that he knew that everything that was happening in their world was wrong, but
he was aware that's the real tragedy of his character.
Yep.
Yeah.
He was trapped inside of it to such a point that even the one thing that he really truly wanted in the world, which was to connect with another person, was denied, and he had to play the role regardless. So from the hand
it also
signal
kind of
warning.
shows. I have a question. Is it a
Shoot.
sign of strength or a sign of weakness that he upheld his duty despite how he felt about it?
To Western readers, it's probably going to look like a sign of weakness. To people who understand the culture, it shows us. It shows his character. It's all about that,
the
right?
full core of who he is fundamentally.
Yes. Regardless, he had no choice in the matter, in any of what was happening. You know, from the sniper scene where he orders Sumi to try to take Hannah out. He had to do that. He didn't want to, but
Yeah.
it was expected. And in order for him to not put himself in a position where he could no longer help anyone, he had to play the role at all times.
He was a tool who had to do a tool's job. And he
Mhm.
knew what that job was, and he's maybe the best tool at his individual job, maybe alongside Gabriel, but yeah.
Yeah, and unlike Gabriel, he knew what was happening. He was conscious of the immorality of it all, the evil of it all.
So
Gabriel
the curse
had
of
no concept.
So the curse of unused wisdom.
Yeah, very much so. But in that final conflict, and you know, especially the very end scene when it culminates, he's grateful
for his end. Spoilers,
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah, spoiler, he is released, and he walks into that confrontation expecting that his skills are going to outweigh Gabriel's, so expecting that he's going to have to survive because he's good at killing, and he knows he's good at killing,
and everybody knows he's good at killing.
Yeah, but hoping and praying that it was just going to come to an end. That
he was a tortured
not
soul, and he wanted a naturally, like, a non seppuku release from that torturous existence. I think the torturous existence, because of his awareness of the wrongness and his somewhat self-imposed inability to fight the system that he was a cog in.
Yes.
And like even at the end, he in his own internal dialogue expresses not envious and I want someone else's stuff kind of thing, but envy, like this almost envious feeling towards Gabriel. He's like, he has freed himself from this machine.
Yeah,
I envy him, and like he and the girl are going to perish, but I envy that opportunity to live differently.
Yes, very much. He there it's a little hard to say it without getting caught up in it, but his whole tragedy was that he was behind glass when Gabriel was a blank slate. So he was trapped inside of himself, and Gabriel didn't know he was trapped, but as soon as he did, he broke out. And that was what Michael envied, was that Gabriel could make the decision.
Yes.
And he couldn't.
Gabriel was the elephant with the string tied to its leg.
Yeah.
That's the best way to explain it that I could think of quickly.
But a lot of people that read the story originally didn't quite understand why Michael Say was using the hand signals to warn Gabriel.
It was the most direct thing he could do in Defiance.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a prisoner in a POW camp. It's like, oh, you're not allowed to do this and that. And it's like, they're going to do what they can within their limits. They can't control, like, despite what they act like, they can't control what you think. And if they can't control what you think, you can find the tiniest ways to seek rebellion.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just like not letting a cart tip over or something like that. Maybe that's it. But
yeah, he couldn't commit harakiri because if he had, he would have been admitting that he was aware of the evil, and that was
It
what
would have
all of this was
exposed.
about.
It would have
Yes,
exposed him. Yeah.
because the whole company would have known that he took himself out of the equation because he. So even then, he couldn't kill himself
And that would
because
be
it
his
would have,
shame. Yeah.
yeah, it would have let everyone know that there was a problem. And that moment with Gabriel putting his hand on the Tonto with him before that final stroke, the killing blow, it was a moment of the two of them connecting and realizing that they could do it together. It wasn't just him. He didn't have to just be killed in order for it to end. He could leave.
And so his final act in life was his choice. He the defiance, the leaving.
Yep.
And it's a very tragic, but it's almost Greek. It's reminiscent of Greek tragedy in a way. Characters don't get the true justice maybe they deserve, but it's a bit more optimistic than that. And I really
Yeah.
appreciated his little character arc. And the only complaint is that now, outside of going back, we don't get more of him. He's gone. That's it. That is a tragedy of having a great character and then slice and that's over.
But that's what makes a legend. And
That's true.
The legend of Michael continues on throughout the story in very slight but powerful ways. I try to, like, even with book 2, there I try to find some opportunity to really, like, unfortunately reach into every reader's chest, grab hold of their heart and squeeze.
That's your job as a writer.
Yes. And the Michael part was one that I was really proud of. I think maybe I might have been too soft in some of the details behind it, but it's
Well,
it is
even Hannah using his sword set
yes.
is they carry him with them in a small way.
Yeah, and other people do too. And that convergence in book 2 was a very powerful moment. But the things that happened to another fan favorite character, which we haven't really talked about, is also one of those avenues to really grab hold of people. Sato Hasegawa.
Oh yeah,
that-
he lied in this book. I didn't think about it the first time I read through. I'm like, that son of a, he just lied to Michael's face. He looked him in the eye.
He did.
And he lied through his teeth.
Yeah, Sato.
And because of who he is, that was it struck me funny the second time reading it, but not the first time. First time I'm like, let's get back to the fights. Second time I'm like, you sly bastard.
That was really important that happened, and it's a part of the character, period. Even in the second book, you understand that Sato will do what he thinks is right, even if the action that he has to take is wrong.
That's a tricky moral quandary too. It's like what, like, base question, would you lie? No. Then would you lie if it would save a family member?
Right. And the base question, if you asked Sato, he would have said yes. That's the type of person he is. I would absolutely lie, and I know why I would lie, and that would be why I would lie. That's the type of person he was, and the reason for that is because of his background, the soldier.
Yeah, the soldier, the man who's also lost so much as well. He's
Yep.
a great character, and he's not young, and I know he's gonna not stay with us forever, and I'm gonna be very upset with you when he's finally gone. It's a necessary thing, but it's inevitable.
Yep, it unfortunately has to happen. There is a whole very important part of the entire story arc, like the whole 18 books, that have to do with that, and it all happens because of his eventual time being up, because he's so old. But he came to me out of nowhere.
He's an inspired character for sure.
I had an Athena moment where I was working on it. He was not in my outline. And then I had that point, and I thought people might notice it because I had created this little sequence where Genbu made an open mistake where he told Michael and the others to go to this specific temple because to Genbu, that would be the most likely place for Gabriel to go. But it was a personal choice. He didn't understand his creation.
Yeah.
On a deep level.
He miscalculated, essentially.
Yeah. He didn't understand his creation on a deep level, so he miscalculated, and Gabriel and Hannah end up holding up in this abandoned church.
And Hasagawa does kind of come out of nowhere, but it doesn't feel wrong. It feels right. It feels like, oh, they entered his domain, however small or insubstantial seeming it is.
Yep. And I actually stopped for an entire month when I was writing book 1 because I wrote up to that point, and then all of a sudden in my head there's this old man.
And I'm like, did you know everything about him pretty much right away?
No, that's why I had to stop for him.
That's interesting.
This old man arrived in my mind when I was working on it, and I stopped writing. I sat back and I'm like, okay, who the hell are you? And why are you here? Oh.
He's very important to the story. The story would be missing something, I think, if he was gone.
It would be missing a lot, and the broader narrative would have missed a lot too, because I hadn't finished writing the whole arc of 18 books out. I had just started working on the Angel War arc itself, the first 3. So when I stopped and took that month, I was like, I spent time building a whole new character. I did some research into their like Japanese historical war efforts and how those things worked, applied them to this future world, and found where he fit into them. And then this other part of the story started to form around him that eventually fed into the entire 18-book outline.
That's what's so interesting too, because like I've had characters like that where I find them, I'm like, who are you? I have to kind of go through the process of figuring out. But then I have other characters, I'm like, the moment I picture them in my head, I know everything about them. I've had a couple characters that are like that. And it's just interesting seeing the different processes people go through because all these characters are born of us in some form or fashion.
True, very true. It was just so interesting to me because I had to create not only what he was going to become through the course of the story, but I also had to create all the pieces that made him who he was when he entered the scenario.
He's lived a lot more life than either of the other 2 characters, and so there's a whole lot more there.
And then he tied so perfectly to Gabriel, because Gabriel can't quite grasp what it is to be a person outside of his relationship with Hannah as her protector. So,
and even that is not very human. It's the most human thing about him, but even that is not very distinctly human. And Hasagawa is all human, if that makes any sense.
he becomes the ideal of man to Gabriel. So it's like not quite a father figure, but a model of what a man is supposed to be.
Yes. Yeah, and obviously this all gets, without spoilers, characters get better as time goes on in some ways. Yeah, no, they the relationship development into the second book, there's a little bit of a time skip and it makes sense, but it all feels very organic. It feels like where these characters would be and should have gone. And it's very gratifying to see some characters change a little bit and others change but also resist change, and then see the deepening relationship there. It's a very gratifying thing to read.
He's a slight bone of contention with some of the readers and reviewers that I've dealt with because of his faith, his religion.
I figured that.
A lot of folks have reached out and been like, okay, when that happened and they started talking about this stuff, I was afraid you were going to go into like the Christian fiction level of, pound people in the head with doctrine, but he's just a model. He lives his life, and you see what a Christian person would be like.
He's not
world.
beating them or the
Yeah.
audience over the head.
Right. And when I was working on 2, the St. Michael prayer scene in 2, that's a small spoiler, but it's one of my favorite writings. I was actually studying and going to a RCIA, which is my education to become a Catholic.
Oh yeah.
When I was working on that and applying some of the knowledge that I was gaining about the religion to the character in greater detail. And then one of the most interesting things in my parish that we do when at the end of Mass is we always say the prayer to St. Michael, the Archangel. And it was really funny to me that because I had made Michael the character who was an archangel and was such a fan favorite, that doing the St. Michael the Archangel prayer in that scene in book 2 in such a strange and violent part of the story had so many levels of meaning that I couldn't pass it up. So I worked on it.
Pass up that opportunity.
Yeah, I worked on it. I wrote it all out and I read it back to myself. I was like, this is awesome. This is even that point where he stops and he has that little exchange with Adachi in the middle. It all played so perfectly, played to the character perfectly, and played to the overall theme so well that I was really proud of myself for writing that out. He will. One of the reveals in 2 is very important to the broader narrative of the G Sedai books. And as I progress through them, I'm really looking forward to getting that out there and getting everybody's feedback on it.
Yeah, no, I'm one thing for sure is book 2 is quite a bit longer, which it needed to be. It's the second book. It's a sequel. It needs to expand the world, and it's not as tight and focused a story. I'm sure some people won't like that as much, but I think
nobody's really been bothered by it.
Oh, well, I'm happy. I wasn't bothered by it, but it's something I could see. I've seen people do that before. It's like, oh, why can't the story be the same? Because the story changes, the characters change. Stories are not. It's not a printed thing. It's not like what we were talking about earlier. It's not a formula. You don't stamp it out. It's its own living, breathing thing.
Yeah, that was intentional. It was an objective of mine that G Sedai 1 is so tight in its narrative because Gabriel is only thinking about the present. And Hannah can only think about the present. They're both in survival mode. You're only concerned about what's around you. So the only things that matter are what's around you.
There is no past worth looking back on, and there is no future, because what's happening right now is so vital.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it almost, like, I had to rewrite the conference between Michael, Uriel, and Barakiel in the middle there because my original version of it was super short because I was so focused on the tight narrative around Gabriel and Hannah that it felt like it didn't fit. It wasn't supposed to be there because it was outside of what was going on with them. And
I think it did, because those people are not in survival. They're people. Right. They're real people in a real full world outside of this story.
Yes. And I provided a window with that scene. Now with the second book, Gabriel and Hannah are both looking outworld. So they're now looking at their surroundings. And that meant that I had to allow the reader to see more of the world around them as well. So it's a natural progression of their perspective on the life that they're living.
Yeah. Well, that's tremendous, man. No, this has been a really great talk so far. It's getting pretty late. I figured we could probably.
I know we're reaching like IAK levels of time length here.
I know. I'm like, you're gonna need to get another drink, man. Shit. And I don't want to keep you too long either, because I know tomorrow you have to do the same damn thing.
Yeah, and I have to do it while I'm drinking whiskey. This, thankfully, is just soda.
Oh, I wouldn't have guessed. Yeah, you have it in the same glass.
Yeah.
Oh,
This is my something to drink on any stream glass. But yeah, I only drink on the Friday shows. I don't drink any other time during the week. Orson Scott Card swore by drunken writing. I find it doesn't work as well for me.
I think for some people it works. One friend of mine was like, drunken writing's very sober editing.
Yes, absolutely sober editing, but it doesn't work as well for me when I've had a couple of drinks. I'm like, where's the keys?
Oh, that's how you get me. If I tried it one time, and I don't get drunk very easily, but I got pretty close, which was like 7 or 8 shots. I was writing, and like I was writing just fine. Mostly I was having a couple typos here and there I mostly ignored, but it was like, and then the character did this. I'm like, later I was reading, I'm like, what the fuck? Just like I got silly. That's all it was. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm a whiskey guy, so there's really no tipsy in that. Yeah. It's either stone cold sober or foot on the gas.
That's great, man. But thank you so much, Daniel, for coming on the show. Guys, check him out on whimsyland.org. He's still running his campaign for the ColourPop edition of G Sedai comic book number 2. You can find all of his books on Amazon, including the superhero novels that we barely even touched on in this interview.
We'll have to do it again when I finish Legacy Heroes 2.
If you come back, there's something about this show. If you first time you come on, it's Iron Age Legends. Second time, Iron Age Myth. That's the change in deal. Because yeah, anyone can be a legend, but to be a myth there has to be repetition.
I like it.
And also, there is I've had people ask me to be on the show. I'd be happy to have a lot of people on the show, but there is a criteria for this show. It's a very specific criteria. I have to have read, listened to, seen, or enjoyed something you've created and that you sell. And I have to like it. And then I also have to like you. It's a more strict format than a lot of people have for this style of show generally. But I would endorse anybody I've had on this show, and I, to a small degree, trust anyone that I've had on this show. So Daniel, you are amongst those people, and I'm very proud to have you as the 8th guest on my show. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being here and for all that you do to the community. I had something really special I was trying to put together for this show. I just ran out of time, but you'll see a small portion. You'll see something later, but yeah, no, it's going to be fun.
Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Any final words, final thoughts, parting plugs, whatever you want, man. It's your deal.
If you are like most people and you have a story you want to tell, reach out and talk to me. I'll help you get there.
Hell yeah.
Also, the fact that Royce doesn't use the voice modulation at all when he has a more expensive board than me, that's a crime.
Royce can barely make the stream function.
It's so funny with technology. It's like some people are like, it seems like everybody, the more I talk to people, the more everybody's this way. It's like things that it seems so basic are really easy for some people. And then other harder things, or, the reverse, whatever. People are really good at very specific things and completely blind and retarded with others.
Yeah. It's a wonder that we get IAK to actually start on time.
That's for sure. But guys, thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Daniel, for being here and participating in this discussion/interview. And all right, guys, parting woo. 3, 2, 1.